Chapter 972. Demon Fish Eye? After hearing what Cui Ziwen said, Yi Fan asked in surprise. That's right, Cui Ziwen explained. It is said that there is a very strange fish at the bottom of the sea, called the demon fish. Although this fish looks no different from other fish, it has 3 eyes. There are 2 eyes on the head and 1 in the belly. Different from the 2 eyes on the head, the one in the belly is very magical. It can transmit everything that the other 2 eyes see to the other demon fish. Even if it is thousands of miles away, it can still be transmitted in time. Later, the warlocks used this characteristic of the demon fish and refined the demon fish eye in the belly with a secret method. It was made into a secret device, specially used to spy on others. However, this fish has always lived at the bottom of the sea and is very rare. Its eyesight is amazing and it is very difficult to catch. Moreover, this fish has to live for more than 100 years before the 3rd eye can be taken out. Otherwise, once taken out, it will lose its spirituality. Therefore, this demon fish eye is very rare in the world. This treasure has always been in pairs. If there is only one, it will be useless. Matsumoto Takeyoshi must have a demon fish eye that looks exactly the same. Since Big Brother has found the clue, is there a way to take the demon fish eye out of the black feather blade? Yi Fan asked Cui Ziwen. That is not difficult, Cui Ziwen said with a smile. He smiled and put the black feather blade back into the scabbard. Then, he held the scabbard with his right hand and gently placed his left hand on the hilt of the black feather blade. Buzz, Cui Ziwen's mind moved, and the center of his left palm suddenly shone with golden light. Clang, the black feather blade made a crisp sound, and then a black light shone everywhere. Buzz, in the black light, a bright gray light bead slowly emerged from the hilt of the black feather blade. The light bead was gray and white, the size of a human eye. It was crystal clear and very round. On the surface of the bead there were layers of halo and it was very bright. Buzz, after the light bead emerged, it slowly flew into Cui Ziwen's hand. On the hilt of the black feather blade, a transparent circular hole immediately appeared. Here, this is the eye of the demon fish, Cui Ziwen said as he handed the shiny gray demon fish eye to Yi Fan. Yi Fan took the demon fish eye and held it in his palm. It was because of this thing that Matsumoto Takeyoshi could see his every move clearly. Despicable bastard! Yi Fan thought to himself as he suddenly clenched his hand. Bang! As a burst of gray light burst out from between Yi Fan's fingers, the eye of the demon fish was instantly crushed by Yi Fan, turning into flying ash. Although this item is detestable, it is still worth a bit of money. Brother Yi squeezed it, and 100,000 taels of snowflake silver were gone. Cui Ziwen put down the black feather blade, leaned back on the 9-dragon jade chair, and looked at Yi Fan with a smile. This kind of harmful thing, I don't need it. Yi Fan released his hand and said with a frown. Brother Ye's temper is still so unruly. Cui Ziwen said with a smile. Thank you for your help this time. Come, let me toast you. Yi Fan raised his wine cup and toasted Cui Ziwen. You and I are brothers, there is no need to be so polite. Cui Ziwen raised his wine cup and said with a smile. Puff. The two clinked their wine cups and downed the contents in one gulp. Brother Yi, how is the search for the 9 cauldrons going? Cui Ziwen put down his wine cup and asked Yi Fan with a smile. To tell you the truth, I have already found 8 of the 9 divine cauldrons. Yi Fan replied to Cui Ziwen, as long as I defeat Nangong-o this time, I will be able to gather all the patterns of the 9 cauldrons and comprehend the secret technique. Nangong-o? Are you talking about the king of drama, a drama through the intestines? When Cui Ziwen heard the words Nangong-o, his expression changed slightly as he asked. That's right. Yi Fan told Cui Ziwen about his battle with the Ghost Lord, the bet with the Yin-Yang freak old man, and the promise he made with Nangong-ao in his previous life. After hearing this, Cui Ziwen frowned and did not say a word. Seeing Cui Ziwen frown, Yi Fan's heart skipped a beat. Ever since he knew Cui Ziwen, He had never seen Cui Ziwen with such an expression. Something that could make Cui Ziwen frown must be very troublesome. "Brother, what's wrong with you?" Yi Fan asked Cui Ziwen. With Brother Ye's current cultivation, the chances of him winning this battle with Nangong Ao are not high. Cui Ziwen said as he filled his jade wine cup with wine. Then, he raised the wine cup and drank it all. Cui Ziwen's words made Yi Fan's expression change drastically. He was shocked. He had just finished cultivating the fourth realm of the mysterious sky's secret technique, dragon traversing the heavens. He was full of confidence, but Cui Ziwen's words were like a bucket of cold water splashed on his head. If someone else had said that to him, he would have laughed it off and dismissed it. However, he did not dare to doubt Cui Ziwen's words. "You were able to defeat the Ghost Lord Gui Linglong mostly because of luck." Cui Ziwen put down his wine cup and said to Yi Fan, "I know Gui Linglong's cultivation better than you. His virtual immortal soul technique and 9 nether fire shield are so powerful that they have never been seen before. The reason he lost to you was because he underestimated you. That was why he lost so miserably. If he had focused his 2 ultimate techniques on one point at the beginning and attacked you forcefully, you would not have been his match even with the heavenly demon power. At most, you would have been able to preserve your life. However, Nangong Ao's cultivation is not below Gui Linglong's. Let's put it this way. If the two of them were to fight, Gui Linglong would not even be able to get close to Nangong Ao." Can't get close to him?" Yi Fan asked in shock. "You don't understand Nangong Ao at all." Cui Ziwen continued, "This person's cultivation is so high that it is not something you can imagine. 7 of the 9 great bell keepers died in battle. Only Gui Linglong and Nangong Ao survived. Isn't that enough to explain the problem? Gui Linglong dared to challenge the demon lord Tenmoni, while Nangong Ao dared to challenge Eldritch. That is enough to explain everything." Yi Fan's eyes widened as he remained silent. "As far as I know, whether it's spiritual power, secret techniques, weapons, or movement skills, Nangong Ao can be said to be excellent in everything," Cui Ziwen continued, "especially his space travel technique. It's simply unprecedented and unparalleled. I said earlier that Gui Linglong would not be able to get close to him precisely because of this. What about you, big brother? If you were to fight, how confident are you in defeating Nangong Ao?" Yi Fan looked up at Cui Ziwen and asked with a frown. He wanted to know who would be better between Nangong Ao and Cui Ziwen. Cui Ziwen was stunned at first, then he smiled. "Brother Yi, why are you suddenly asking about this?" Cui Ziwen asked with a smile while pouring wine for Yi Fan. "I want to know how powerful Nangong Ao is." Yi Fan told him the truth. "How do you want me to answer you?" Cui Ziwen put down the wine jug and said with a smile, "In terms of movement techniques, I might not be as good as him. But then again, he would not be able to get within 100 feet of me. Once he crosses this range, he will not be able to escape." Yi Fan's pupils constricted immediately after he heard that. "In terms of movement techniques, I might not be as good as him." Cui Ziwen used the word might in the first half of his sentence. "Once he crosses this range, he will not be able to escape." Cui Ziwen used the word don't think in the second half of his sentence. In other words, Cui Ziwen's cultivation was not below Nangong Ao's. "If you want to defeat Nangong Ao, Brother Yi will have to reach a higher level," Cui Ziwen said meaningfully. Yi Fan looked up at Cui Ziwen and nodded solemnly. At this moment, a terrifying thought flashed through his mind. The black feather saber's hilt has such a gap. It's too ugly. I'll help you to the end. I'll help you fill this gap, Cui Ziwen said as he stretched out one hand into the void. Buzz, a red light appeared on Cui Ziwen's palm out of thin air. In the middle of the red light, there was a bright red bead floating in the air. The bead was oval-shaped, about the size of an eyeball, and the red light around it was as red as blood. Brother Chui, this is, looking at the red bead suspended in Chui Ziwen's hand, Yi Fan frowned and asked. This bead is called the air-calming bead. It was a gift from the king when I killed the evil dragon for the kingdom of foam, Chui Ziwen said to Yi Fan. There are 2 beads, one big and one small, and they have the magical effect of calming the wind. The big one is like a chicken egg, which I inlaid on the top of the Dojin Palace to stop the wind. The small one is like a pigeon egg, which is the one in my hand. Brother, this thing is too precious, Yi Fan immediately said when he saw that Chui Ziwen wanted to use the air-calming bead to fill the gap on the black feather saber's hilt. It's because it's precious that I'm giving it to you, Chui Ziwen said with a smile. You're now the king of the devil realm. Your status is noble, so you can't be too shabby, Chui Ziwen said as he pressed the red air-calming bead on the hilt of the black feather saber. Buzz, after a flash of red light, the air-calming bead was directly embedded in the hilt of the black feather saber. The bead hilt fit perfectly, as if it was custom-made. With the decoration of the air-calming bead, the whole black feather saber suddenly became jeweled, luxurious, and extremely beautiful. This is more like the Devil King's saber. Chui Ziwen handed the black feather saber to Yi Fan and said with a smile. Thank you, brother, Yi Fan said to Chui Ziwen with a smile as he took the black feather saber that was surrounded by the aura of jewels. Here we go again, Chui Ziwen said with a smile. By the way, brother Chui, where's Mei? Second guardian? As soon as Yi Fan said that, he immediately felt that it was inappropriate and quickly changed his word. Chui Ziwen laughed when he heard that. He drank quietly while looking at Yi Fan meaningfully. What's so funny, brother Chui? Yi Fan asked Chui Ziwen. Would you believe me if I said that succubus is sick? Chui Ziwen asked Yi Fan with a smile. Sick? Yi Fan asked with a frown. After coming back from your Lingyun cave last time, this girl has been absent-minded all day long. She's in a daze for a while, giggling for a while, and then sighing for a while. If she's not sick, what else could it be? Chui Ziwen joked with Yi Fan. This. Brother Chui really knows how to joke with me, Yi Fan said incoherently. I'm not joking with you. This girl is really sick, Chui Ziwen said seriously. What illness? Yi Fan believed him. Chapter 973. Whoosh, high up in the sky, a group of snow-white, auspicious clouds appeared in the distant sky and floated toward the golden battle palace. The auspicious clouds were rolling and moving at lightning speed. Whoosh, when the auspicious clouds floated above the golden battle palace, a beautiful figure appeared out of thin air in front of the golden battle palace. The woman was wearing a black robe with a pink butterfly jade belt. Her eyebrows were like crescent moons, her eyes were like stars, her skin was like cream, and her teeth were like jade. She could be said to be the most beautiful woman in the world. When the woman appeared out of thin air, the 2 gatekeepers who were whispering to each other in front of the golden battle palace immediately bowed and greeted her. Greetings, second guardian. The 2 of them knelt down on one knee and greeted her in unison. The person who had just arrived was none other than Succubus, who was ranked second among the 4 guardians of the Tsuaming Hall. Skinny Tiger, Fat Dragon, why aren't the 2 of you guarding the gate? What are you whispering to each other about? Succubus asked the 2 of them. Second guardian, there's something you don't know. Today, a big shot came to our golden battle palace. The tall and thin man, who was addressed as Skinny Tiger by Succubus, raised his head and spoke to Succubus. Big shot? Who is it? Succubus asked, puzzled. Those who came to the Golden Battle Palace to gamble were either rich or noble. From the king of a country to the tycoons, none of them were simple people. The 2 gatekeepers were already used to seeing these people, so they weren't surprised. For the 2 of them to be so respectful, it must be a big shot. Second guardian knows this big shot. He is the new king of the devil realm, Yi Bufan. The fat man, who was addressed as Fat Dragon, said, Yi Fan. When Fat Dragon said the name, Succubus's beautiful eyes widened in surprise. After waiting for so long, Yi Fan had finally arrived. When did he arrive? Where is he now? Succubus asked the two of them anxiously. He just arrived. He is now chatting with Master Chui, Shou stuttered as he replied. Fat Dragon was also dumbfounded at this moment. The change in Succubus's expression shocked both of them. In the Dojin Palace, Succubus was a famous cold beauty. The two of them had been in the Tsuaming Hall for more than 30 years, but they had never seen Succubus smile. Inside the Tsuaming Hall, a magical gambling game was set up in private. Every disciple of the Tsuaming Hall is willing to reward anyone who can make the second guardian smile with 100 taels of gold. One had to know that the disciples of Tsuaming Hall could be found all over the country, and there were more than 10,000 of them. It was easy to imagine how great the wealth was. However, no matter how hard they tried, no one could make Succubus laugh. Even Chui Ziwen felt that no one could win this bet. However, just a moment ago, when Fat Dragon said that Demon Monarch Yi Bufan had arrived, this icy beauty actually smiled. This made the two of them almost unable to believe their eyes. That's great. Succubus smiled and ran all the way into the Dojin Palace. Hey Fat Dragon, I'm not seeing things right? Just now, Second Protector, did you laugh? After Succubus left, Shou stood up from the ground and looked at Fat Dragon and asked, I don't think so. Fat Dragon stood up and looked at the entrance of the Dojin Palace and muttered, the second guardian really did smile. Then, did we make a fortune? Shou continued to ask. I think so. Fat Dragon swallowed his saliva and said, Succubus ran all the way down the 9 floors of the stone tower and arrived in front of the stone door on the 9th floor in no time. The Tsuaming Hall had a rule that unless it was an emergency, no one was allowed to use their cultivation in the Dojin Palace. Because of this, she ran all the way here. At this moment, her heart was pounding as if she had a little rabbit in her mouth. With her heart beating wildly, she took a few deep breaths. Then, she tidied up her hair and gently knocked on the stone door. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking sounds were crisp and pleasing to the ear. Every knock seemed to be knocking on Succubus's heart. Who is it? Inside the stone room, Chui Ziwen, who was wearing a black robe with golden threads, asked while slowly drinking wine. At this moment, even Yi Fan had sensed the familiar aura outside the door. For some reason, Yi Fan's heart was beating faster at this moment. Reporting to the sect leader, it's me. Succubus suppressed his pounding heart and said calmly. Is everything done? Chui Ziwen asked Succubus. Reporting to the sect leader, everything is done. Succubus replied. Okay, I understand. You can go back and rest. Chui Ziwen looked at Yi Fan with a smile and said to Succubus. Being stared at by Chui Ziwen, Yi Fan suddenly felt awkward. Chui Ziwen's gaze seemed to have seen through all of his thoughts. Sect leader, hearing Chui Ziwen's words, Succubus, who was standing outside the door, frowned and stopped talking. What, is there something else? Chui Ziwen deliberately asked Succubus. How could Chui Ziwen not know what the two were thinking? He was deliberately teasing the two so that they could hear him but not see him. No, nothing, Succubus pursed his lips and whispered. Then you can go back and rest. Chui Ziwen held back his laughter and said. Yes, sect leader, I'll take my leave. As the Succubus spoke, she turned around in a daze and walked down the stairs step by step. At this time, he was extremely disappointed. He thought that he would be able to see Yi Fan this time, but it turned out to be a waste of time. Yi Fan, you're now the king of the Devil Realm and your status is extremely respected. Can't you tell Chui Ziwen that you want to see me? Could it be that you didn't come to the Dujinshi Palace to see me? Succubus thought to himself as he walked down the stairs mechanically. Brother, I promised the second guardian that I would come here to see her. Can you, inside the stone room? Yi Fan frowned and said to Chui Ziwen. After thinking about it, Yi Fan decided to directly tell Chui Ziwen his intentions. Ha ha. Brother Yi, you still can't hold it in, ha ha ha. As soon as Yi Fan finished speaking, Cui Ziwen burst out laughing. Brother, Yi Fan finally realized that Cui Ziwen was teasing him. Go, you're really lucky. You stole the heart of the #1 beauty in the Tsuaming Hall. Cui Ziwen waved his hand at Yi Fan and said. Yi Fan smiled awkwardly. Bang! Succubus returned to his room and slammed the stone door shut. Then, he leaned his back against the stone door. 2 lines of tears silently rolled down his beautiful face. Succubus, you're so useless, Succubus scolded himself as he wiped his tears with his sleeve. You were fine just now. Why are you suddenly scolding yourself? Just as Succubus was heartbroken, Yi Fan's clear voice came from outside the stone door. It was Yi Fan. Yi Fan was outside the door. After hearing Yi Fan's voice, Succubus suddenly looked up and froze on the spot. What, you don't want to see me? Then I'm leaving. Yi Fan's voice came again. After hearing Yi Fan's words, Succubus immediately came back to his senses. He hurriedly wiped his tears with his sleeve. Then, he turned around and opened the stone door. Outside the stone door, Yi Fan was standing with his back to the stone door. He had silver hair, a black robe, and his hair was tied up with a golden crown. After hearing the sound of the stone door, Yi Fan slowly turned around. When he saw the familiar figure standing in front of him, Succubus's heart almost melted. After the demon-slaying conference, she had been thinking about it day and night. Finally, the day she had been waiting for had arrived. Before Yi Fan came, she had imagined countless times what she would say when they met. However, when Yi Fan really appeared in front of her, she suddenly couldn't say a word. At this moment, Yi Fan was also at a loss. He wanted to say something to Succubus, but he didn't know what to say. For a moment, the two of them stared at each other without saying a word. After a long while, the two of them spoke at the same time. The two of them spoke at the same time again. In an instant, the two of them laughed together. How are you now? Yi Fan asked Succubus. I'm very good. How about you? Succubus asked Yi Fan in return. Same as always. Yi Fan replied with a smile. I thought you wouldn't come. Succubus pursed his lips and said softly. Since I promised to come and see you, I will do as I said. Yi Fan smiled. Succubus smiled and nodded slightly. What, you want me to talk to you outside the door? You're not going to invite me in for a cup of tea? Yi Fan asked Succubus with a smile. Tea? Didn't you just finish drinking with Master Cui? Why are you here for tea again? Succubus pursed his lips and asked with a smile. I came all the way here to see you, and you're not even willing to give me a cup of tea? Yi Fan asked Succubus. You came all the way here to see me, and you came empty-handed? Succubus leaned against the door frame and asked Yi Fan with a smile. I didn't bring anything, and you're not going to give me tea? That's too unreasonable. Yi Fan retorted. If you don't bring me anything, I won't give you any tea. Succubus crossed his arms and said with a smile. How do you know I didn't bring you anything? Yi Fan asked Succubus. I don't believe you. Succubus smiled. If I take it out, what will you say? Yi Fan asked. If you take it out, I'll let you in for tea, Succubus said. Buzz, Yi Fan reached out with one hand and a golden cloth bag appeared out of thin air. Here, this is for you, Yi Fan said as he handed the item in his hand to Succubus. What is this? Succubus looked at the cloth bag that Yi Fan handed over and asked. Open it and take a look, Yi Fan said. Succubus took the bag and slowly opened it. Buzz, the moment the bag was opened, Succubus's face was instantly illuminated. What a beautiful 9-flying dagger! Succubus said in surprise. She was one of the 4 guardians of Tsuaming Hall, and Tsuaming Hall was famous for being rich. Naturally, she knew all about rare treasures and rare weapons. The 9 flying daggers in the bag were exquisitely crafted and had beautiful patterns. The material was also made of a rare meteorite. It was a rare treasure. How is it? Can I exchange it for a cup of tea? Yi Fan asked Succubus with a smile. This is for me? Succubus asked Yi Fan. You don't like it? Yi Fan asked. This is too expensive. I can't accept it. Succubus put away the flying daggers and handed them to Yi Fan. Chapter 974. Upon hearing Yi Fan's words, Succubus pursed its lips into a smile and blushed. Now there's tea to drink, right? Yi Fan asked Succubus with a smile. Lord Demon Lord, please. Succubus smiled as it moved to the side and invited Yi Fan in. That's more like it. Yi Fan stepped in. Succubus slowly closed the stone door. After entering Succubus's chamber, Yi Fan began to examine the stone chamber. The entire stone chamber was exquisitely designed and extremely spacious. The floor, the roof, and the walls were all paved with precious wood. The furniture in the stone chamber was all exquisite and luxurious. On the wide balcony, several stalks of verdant bamboo were placed, bursting with vitality. Smoke curled up from a sandalwood burner, and a fragrant aroma assailed his nostrils. Suaming Hall's wealth was comparable to that of an entire country, and Succubus was one of the 4 protectors, so its room was naturally extraordinary. This chamber of yours is truly excellent. Yi Fan looked around at the furnishings in the room and gave a heartfelt sigh of praise. Although the room was made of precious materials, it was extremely simple and elegant, without the slightest sense of grandeur and extravagance. As he spoke, he sat down in front of a quaint square table made of cedar wood. Thank you, Lord Demon Lord, for your praise. Succubus brought a cup of fragrant tea and handed it to Yi Fan. Then, it sat down in an armchair across from Yi Fan and smiled at Yi Fan. Good tea. Yi Fan took a sip of the fragrant tea and praised. This is the Arhat incense that the sect master collected from the immortal island of Penglai. It must be brewed with the sweet dew of bamboo before sunrise in order to release its unique fragrance, Succubus said to Yi Fan with a smile. Good food, good tools, and a beauty by my side. The days here are truly enviable. Yi Fan put down the fragrant tea and said with a smile. You really know how to joke. Succubus smiled sweetly and said, You're now the lord of the demon realm. How can the luxury of the demon realm be compared to Suaming Hall? As for the beauties, needless to say, there are thousands of witches in the demon realm. Which one of them isn't a beauty? This mouth of yours is really sharp. I can't win against you in an argument. Yi Fan smiled. The succubus smiled. She picked up an apple from the table and began to peel it with a delicate knife. How's your cultivation? Yi asked Succubus. It's almost recovered, but the spiritual energy in my dantian is a bit unstable, Succubus said to Yi Fan as he peeled the apple. The sect master said that it's already very good to be able to recover the spiritual energy from decades ago to this state in such a short period of time. If I want to completely recover to my previous state, I'll need at least a year of hard work. Spiritual energy is unstable? Yi Fan frowned and asked Succubus, What's going on? Ever since my spiritual energy was sucked away by the evil Qi, my spiritual veins have become chaotic. The succubus continued, Although I have recovered most of my spiritual energy through bitter cultivation, when I circulate my Qi, it is still not as good as before. Every noon, my Qi Si will ache faintly. After a while, the pain will gradually disappear. You didn't ask Brother Chui to heal you? Yi Fan frowned and asked. In Suaming Hall, as long as there's no threat to your life, you have to rely on your own efforts to heal yourself. This is the rule of Suaming Hall, and it's also to train the healing abilities of the disciples. After all, Suaming Hall is in the business of killing people. Learning how to heal yourself is the most basic ability, Succubus answered Yi Fan. The sect master has already been very kind to me by giving me pointers and helping me recover my spiritual energy. This is a small matter, so of course I have to deal with it myself. After Yi Fan heard this, he slowly nodded his head. Here, have an apple. Succubus handed the peeled apple to Yi Fan. Yi Fan took the apple with one hand and held Succubus' pulse with the other. Seeing this, Succubus was momentarily stunned. Your spirit meridian has been damaged, and a few of your spirit acupoints are close to being blocked. That's why your chi isn't flowing smoothly. Yi Fan frowned as he diagnosed Succubus' pulse. Succubus blushed and pursed his lips into a smile. There's no problem with your sea of energy, and your meridians are very smooth. Only your spirit meridian is damaged, Yi Fan continued. As long as your spirit meridian is repaired and those spirit acupoints that are close to being blocked are completely opened, you'll be fine. In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan had already checked Succubus' body and spirit meridian. As he spoke, he immediately activated the heavenly demon power. Buzz! Yi Fan's fingers instantly glowed with a red light. Buzz, buzz, buzz! Streaks of red light shot out from Yi Fan's 5 fingertips and directly penetrated Succubus' pulse. Succubus only felt a scorching heat flowing through his body like electricity. Wherever the heat passed, it was unobstructed. He's repairing my spirit meridian, Succubus thought to himself as he lifted his head to look at Yi Fan. Yi Fan closed his eyes and focused on healing Succubus. Healing the spirit meridian was not a joke. He had to be completely focused. Seeing how serious Yi Fan was, Succubus smiled. This man cares a lot about me. After 10 minutes, Yi Fan retracted the heavenly demon power and withdrew his hand from Succubus' wrist. Try to circulate your spiritual energy and see if it's smooth, Yi Fan said to Succubus. Okay. Succubus nodded, then closed its eyes and began to circulate its spiritual energy. Buzz! As soon as Succubus thought about it, a green light appeared all over its body. Succubus suddenly opened its eyes and looked at Yi Fan in shock. She never thought that her spiritual energy would have completely recovered to its previous state. Looks like you're fine now. Seeing Succubus's shocked expression, Yi Fan smiled. You helped me recover my spiritual energy? Succubus asked Yi Fan in shock. I've used the heavenly demon power to completely repair your spirit meridian and strengthen it. Then, I've used the lightning tribulation spiritual energy from the mysterious sky secret technique to purify the spiritual energy in your energy reserve. This way, you'll be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort and won't have to work so hard. Oh right, your chi and blood aren't very good. You have to pay attention to your diet and rest, Yi Fan said as he took a bite of the apple in his hand. Succubus pursed her red lips and her eyes turned red. In all these years, other than the sect leader Cui Ziwen, this was the first time a man was truly good to her. Other people were good to her because they coveted her beauty, but Yi Fan was concerned about whether she ate well or slept well. As the saying goes, it's better to have one person to love you than 10,000 people to chase after you. Not only did Yi Fan love her, he also understood her. It's about time I should leave. Take care, Yi Fan said as he stood up. You're leaving? Succubus saw that Yi Fan was about to leave and immediately stood up and asked anxiously. I've seen you, drunk the tea, given the gift, and eaten the fruit. It's time to leave, Yi Fan said to Succubus with a smile. Can't you stay a little longer? Succubus asked Yi Fan. You know, I still have a lot of things to do, Yi Fan replied. Succubus bit her lower lip and lowered her head without saying a word. I'm leaving, Yi Fan said as he slowly walked to the door and prepared to leave. However, the moment Yi Fan reached out to open the door, Succubus suddenly hugged Yi Fan from behind. Yi Fan's body trembled and he frowned. The softness and warmth from behind made his heart beat wildly. He wanted to break free from Succubus's embrace, but he suddenly realized that he couldn't bring himself to do it. You're really brave. Yi Fan calmed his thumping heart and pretended to be relaxed as he spoke. Succubus hugged Yi Fan even tighter when she heard what he said. She wrapped her arms around Yi Fan's waist and pressed her face tightly against Yi Fan's back. Okay, I should go. Yi Fan tried his best to speak calmly. He didn't want Succubus to see his reluctance to leave. When will you come to see me again? Succubus hugged Yi Fan and asked gently, "If there's a chance, I'll definitely come to see you." Yi Fan said, "Don't lie to me." Succubus said, "Okay." Yi Fan replied. Succubus smiled as her eyes reddened. "I'm leaving." "Buzz," Yi Fan said as his body instantly turned into countless golden light fragments and disappeared into thin air. Succubus looked at the light fragments in the air and wiped her tears as a happy smile appeared on her face. Phew! Above the clouds, Yi Fan's robes fluttered as he walked on the clouds. At this time, he was frowning and had a lot on his mind. Nangong Ao was unfathomable and Succubus was deeply in love with him. His head was buzzing and in a mess. In less than half a month, it would be the day of his battle with Nangong Ao. During this time, he had to do everything he could to increase his cultivation. The mysterious sky secret technique had already been cultivated to the 4th stage. He definitely couldn't cultivate to the 5th stage in a short period of time. The same was true for the Proud Moon Heavenly Scripture. In other words, after cultivating the 4th stage of the Proud Moon Heavenly Scripture, Shocking Moon Chapter, he had to obtain power from other sources. When Cui Ziwen told him about this, Yi Fan already had an idea. It was a terrifying idea. Since the mysterious sky secret technique and the Proud Moon Heavenly Scripture could only be cultivated to the 4th stage, then he had to think of a way to obtain sky demon power. His heavenly demon power came from the Blood Demon Pool on Night Demon Peak, and in the Heavenly Demon Cave on Night Demon Peak, there was more than one Blood Demon Pool. Blood Demon Pool, Desire Demon Pool, Death Demon Pool, Evil Demon Pool, Een Demon Pool. Among the 5 demon pools, he had only entered the Blood Demon Pool. There were still 4 demon pools that he hadn't entered, and within these 4 magic pools, there was also a boundless amount of energy. If he could obtain the power of these 4 demon pools, his demon arts would definitely reach the peak. The power of the 5 demon pools plus the power of the 2 demon arts should be enough to defeat Nangong Ao. Let's do it this way. Yi Fan had already made up his mind. At this time, he probably didn't understand that this decision he made would make him regret it for 10 whole years. This was a story for later. Just as Yi Fan was about to increase his speed and rush back to the Lingyun cave, a series of wails came from below. At this time, he had already reached the realm of dragon traversing the heavens. The sensitivity of his 5 senses had naturally increased. Yi Fan frowned, stopped the auspicious clouds, and looked down. With one look, his frown deepened. At this time, he had already arrived in the sky above a town. The surroundings of the town were completely barren. On the streets of the town, countless disaster victims in ragged clothes were hurrying on their way. It was obvious that an extremely severe drought had occurred here. Some of the old, weak, and disabled disaster victims had not eaten or drunk for several days due to lack of physical strength. They directly collapsed on the side of the road, never to stand up again. As for the children who had seen their parents collapse with their own eyes, they were crying loudly. They shook their parents' corpses as their bodies gradually turned cold, wailing loudly, not knowing what to do. How could such a severe drought have occurred here? Why didn't the imperial court send people to help? Chapter 975. Whoosh! Yi Fan thought in his heart. With a thought, he instantly disappeared above the clouds. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, he appeared directly among the disaster victims on the ground. At this time, the disaster victims were in a hurry to get on their way. They did not notice that a person had suddenly appeared in the crowd. Yi Fan pushed through the bustling crowd and came to a female corpse by the side of the road. The female corpse looked to be in her 30s. Her face was thin and bony. In her hand, she was holding a porcelain bowl with a broken corner. Next to the corpse, a little girl who looked to be about 7 years old was kneeling there. She was crying loudly and using her tender little hands to shake her dead mother. She was skinny, dressed in rags, and her face was covered in mud. The disaster victims kept walking past her. No one stopped to look at her. In the year of the catastrophe, it was good enough to take care of their own lives. No one had the mind to care about the life and death of others. Seeing that her mother had not woken up for a long time, the little girl suddenly leaned over the corpse and sobbed. Yifan squatted down and gently touched the female corpse's forehead. This woman had been dead for at least 2 hours. Her body was cold and stiff. Her 3 souls and 7 spirits had already left her body. Without a soul, even if he used the power of the heavenly demon to restore the female corpse to its original state, it would be useless. Little sister, don't cry. Your mother is no longer in this world. Yifan said to the little girl who was leaning over the corpse and crying bitterly. The little girl straightened up and turned to look at Yifan. She hurriedly picked up a branch next to her and held it tightly in her hand. Then she looked at Yifan with a vigilant face. Her eyes were full of horror. In the year of the catastrophe, many human traffickers were looking for little girls who were alone. Once they found them, they would directly kidnap them and sell them to brothels for huge profit. The man in front of her had silver hair, luxurious clothes, and a foreign accent. Naturally, he reminded her of the human traffickers her mother had mentioned to her when she was alive. Don't be afraid. I'm not a bad person, Yifan said to the little girl. As he spoke, he took out an oiled paper bag from his arms. He slowly opened the oiled paper bag and handed it to the little girl. There were a few pieces of pastries in the oil paper bag. These were the rations that Akatsuki had prepared for them before they set off from the East Sea. At that time, the 2 of them were under the Tian Luo umbrella and could not appear as casually as before. That was why Akatsuki was prepared. Are you hungry? Come, eat something, Yifan said to the little girl. Looking at the fragrant pastries in front of her, the little girl instinctively swallowed her saliva. In the past few months, she had been eating tree bark, grass roots, and guanine clay. She had never eaten such good food before. Not to mention now, even in normal times, her mother would only symbolically buy her a few pieces to satisfy her cravings during festivals. The little girl pursed her lips and looked up at Yifan. She neither agreed nor refused. His mother had told him not to pay attention to people of unknown origin, and to not eat food of unknown origin. Don't worry, this pastry is not poisonous. As Yifan spoke, he picked up a piece of pastry and took a bite out of it. Seeing Yifan eating the pastry in big mouthfuls, the little girl could not help but lick her lip. Come, eat quickly. After eating, Big Brother will help you bury your mother. Yifan once again handed the pastry to the little girl. At the mention of her mother, the little girl cried again. The dead can't be brought back to life. Don't cry, eat quickly, Yifan said as he stuffed the pastry into the little girl's hand. Food, there's food. When he saw the pastry in the little girl's hand, a burly man among the disaster victims immediately shouted. After he shouted, the eyes of more than a dozen disaster victims who were with him immediately lit up and surrounded them. Among the disaster victims, there were also unreasonable people, crafty and unreasonable people. These more than a dozen people were usually some scoundrels, street gangsters, all day long, stealing chickens and dogs. As the saying goes, it's easy to change mountains and rivers, but difficult to change one's character. Although they had encountered a great disaster, they still did not change their character. They formed groups and walked through the street. Whoever had better food in their hands, they would attack that person. Now that they saw that the little girl had such delicious pastry in her hands, and Yifan was the only one beside her, how could they let him go? The scoundrels were like hungry wolves pouncing on their prey, heading straight for the pastry in the little girl's hand. But this time, they did not succeed as smoothly as before. Who was Yifan? He was the reincarnation of Eldritch. He was the ruler of the demon realm. 5,000 mountain bandits were all slaughtered by him in the time it took to brew a cup of tea. What more, these scoundrels? Daring to be disrespectful to him, they were simply tired of living. The arrogance of the scoundrels scared the little girl so much that the blood drained from her face, her eyes filled with horror. At such a young age, she had never seen such a scene. At this moment, she looked at Yi Fan again. He hugged the terrified little girl in his arms, then turned his head and narrowed his eagle eyes. Bang, 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 a powerful and domineering invisible spiritual energy seeped out of his body. Puft, puft, puft. More than a dozen scoundrels did not even have the chance to make a sound as they flew back dozens of feet like fallen leaves. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and died. These people did not even understand how they died until they died. Even death can't wipe out their crimes. Yi Fan, who was carrying the little girl, stood up and said coldly, "A group of men actually dared to snatch an orphan's food, they deserved to die." Ah, the bloody scene in front of her made the little girl scream. She instinctively laid her head on Yi Fan's shoulder and closed her eyes, not daring to open them. The passing refugees were also frightened by this tragic scene and retreated, taking a detour inside the Lingyun cave. Akatsuki sat quietly at the stone table with her hands on her cheek. Her eyes were staring blankly as she stared blankly. Baihu stood on the fire Kirin with a dragon head and lion eyes, jumping left and right and running around. It stretched out its claws curiously and kept fiddling with the flames on the fire Kirin's body. The fire Kirin's body was burning fiercely, but Baihu did not feel any pain. Baihu was very puzzled, and its playful heart was aroused. The fire Kirin lay quietly at the side and closed its eyes to take a nap, allowing Baihu to fiddle with it. The man, the fox, and the Kirin were all in a daze, relieving themselves of boredom, and dozing off. Boom! The sound of the stone door opening could be heard. Yi Fan had returned. Akatsuki immediately stood up from the stone chair with a look of surprise on its face when it heard the sound. Baihu stopped fiddling with its claws, and the fire Kirin shook its huge dragon head and stood up from the ground. The man, the fox, and the Kirin all looked toward the entrance of the cave. Whoosh! After the cave door opened, the black-robed, silver-haired Yi Fan floated into the cave from outside. In his arms, there was a little girl in ragged clothes with unkempt hair and a dirty face. The little girl was as thin as a match, but her eyes were clear and she looked very cute. She hugged Yi Fan's neck and widened her round eyes. She timidly looked at the incomparably huge cave in front of her. Her sister was as beautiful as a flower, the clever and obedient white fox, and the auspicious Qilin beast that was covered in flames and could only be seen in New Year's pictures. "We're here," Yi Fan said as he put down the little girl in his arms. The little girl held on to Yi Fan's hand tightly, and it seemed that she was a little shy. "Yi Fan, this..." Akatsuki looked at the little girl in front of her and asked in confusion. Didn't Yi Fan go to the Tsuaming Hall? Why did he bring back a little girl? There was a drought in Guangdong and Guangxi, and there were countless victims. This child's mother passed away on the way to escape, and she was the only one left. I saw that she was all alone, so I buried her mother and brought her back, Yi Fan explained to Akatsuki. If I didn't do anything, this child would have lost her life. Yi Fan said and told Akatsuki what had just happened. Akatsuki's heart warmed when she heard this. Yi Fan was still the same as before, kind-hearted and abhorred evil. Treating good people was like a spring breeze. Treating evil people was like a bone-chilling wind. "Little girl, what's your name?" Akatsuki came in front of the little girl, squatted down, and asked. "My name is Zhou Zishuan." The little girl replied timidly. "My name is Akatsuki, you can call me Sister Hongji in the future," Akatsuki said to the little girl. The little girl nodded obediently. "Hongji, take Zishuan to take a bath, change her clothes, and get something to eat. This child hasn't eaten a full meal for several months." Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. "Okay." Akatsuki responded, took the little girl's hand and walked upstairs. After an hour, Akatsuki came down from upstairs. "Where's Zishuan?" Seeing Akatsuki come down alone, Yi Fan, who was sitting on the stone chair, immediately asked. This child was hungry, thirsty, sleepy, and tired. After bathing and eating, she fell asleep. Akatsuki sat on the stone chair opposite Yifan and said, "That's good." Yifan nodded and said, "This child had a hard life like me, becoming an orphan so early." Akatsuki said with red eyes, "As the saying goes, fellow sufferers empathize with each other." The little girl's experience reminded Akatsuki of her own life experience. "The two of you are lucky. You met your teacher and Zishuan met me." Yifan persuaded Akatsuki, "You didn't see the scene just now. Those disaster victims are really pitiful. Some of them didn't even have a whole corpse." On the cloud road back, Yifan saw with his own eyes the tragic scene of the disaster. Wreckage was everywhere, corpses were everywhere, and bones were eerie. It was a horrible sight. Those corpses were torn apart and devoured by wild dogs. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. It was like hell on earth. "You can save Zishuan, but you can't save the others," Akatsuki said sadly. Akatsuki's words made Yifan silent. There were too many disaster victims, as many as hundreds of thousands. With his strength alone, it was simply a drop in the bucket. After a long time, Yifan suddenly thought of a way. "Zhang Gong, where are Wide and Zhang Gong?" Yifan said softly. Shua. As soon as Yifan's voice fell, two black lights immediately wriggled out from the yin-yang ghost seal in Yifan's arms and fell to the ground. After the brilliance dissipated, two ghosts appeared out of thin air. "Zhang Gong. Wide. Greetings, sir." The two ghosts bowed to Yifan and said respectfully, "I have something for the two of you to do immediately." Chapter 976. What orders does sir have? Seeing that Yifan had something to say, Zhang Gong, dressed in a white jade robe and scholar attire, respectfully asked. "Right now, there is a drought in the two provinces, the people have lost their homes, and the people are in a terrible situation. I want the two of you to immediately set off to help the victims." As Yifan spoke, he took out a thick stack of banknotes and hundreds of glistening yellow gold leaves from his bosom and handed them to the two ghosts. "If you add this up, it's at least 30,000 taels of gold, which can be exchanged for 300,000 taels of silver," Yifan said to the two ghosts. "Take this money and immediately rush to the two provinces, set up porridge stalls, and provide porridge to the victims." "Yes." Wide, dressed in a green jade robe and dressed as a general, took the banknotes and gold from Yifan and respectfully replied, "There are many children who have lost their parents there. Remember to take good care of them. Don't let them lose their lives at such a young age." Yifan reminded the two ghosts. "Yes, sir." The two ghosts replied in unison. "Saving the people from water and fire is a great merit," Yifan continued to say to the two ghosts. "The two of you have committed boundless crimes. This time, the drought is the opportunity for the two of you to atone for your crimes. This time, when you go to the two provinces, the two of you must do your best. Don't be careless, understand?" "Sir, don't worry. The two of us will do our best to save the people. We will not let down Sir's grace of rebirth," Zhang Gong said respectfully. "The two provinces are dry for thousands of miles, and there are corpses everywhere. The people have lost their homes, and 9 out of 10 houses are empty." Yifan reminded the two ghosts again. "This time, when you go to the disaster relief, you will inevitably encounter the ghost messengers of the underworld collecting souls there. If you see the ghost messengers, you must be respectful and not panic. If they ask, just tell them the truth. For my sake, they will not make things difficult for you." He was now the king of the demon world. In addition, the two ghosts were going to the disaster relief and had accumulated great merit. With these 2 points, the ghost messengers would not make things difficult for them. "We obey Sir's orders," the two ghosts answered in unison. "There's no time to lose. You should leave now," Yifan said to the two ghosts. "Remember, don't use your cultivation at will to avoid disturbing the people." The two ghosts bowed to Yifan. Then, they spun around on the spot and disappeared like a breeze. I couldn't tell that you, the monarch of the demon realm, are a benevolent monarch, Akatsuki said with a smile when she saw Yi Fan generously helping the people. I, the benevolent ruler, am now a pauper. I'll have to tighten my belt in the future. Yi Fan smiled as he picked up the fragrant tea and took a sip. Almost all of his belongings were given to the two ghosts. At this moment, there were only a few scattered silver taels left in his pocket. Altogether, there were no more than 10 silver taels. It's okay. I'm here. You won't starve to death. Akatsuki covered her mouth and laughed. Speaking of you, I also have something for you to do. Yi Fan put down the stone cup and said to Akatsuki. Something for me to do? What is it? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. I have to go back to the demon realm to deal with some matters. It may take 3 or 4 days before I come back, Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. During this time, you go to the Forbidden City for me. Forbidden? Forbidden City? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan in confusion. Why should I go to the Forbidden City? Yi Fan looked at Akatsuki and said calmly, Go and tell the Crown Prince that there is a drought in the 2 provinces. Tell him to quickly send people to provide relief. Also, tell the Crown Prince about Matsumoto Takeyoshi's situation. Tell him that the weapons of the Black Feather Troop are almost finished. Tell him to prepare early. Why do you want me to go? Akatsuki asked with a frown. She knew of the Crown Prince's admiration for her. She did not understand why Yi Fan would want her to do this. The Crown Prince likes you. He will definitely listen to you. Yi Fan explained to Akatsuki. For the hundreds of thousands of disaster victims, my 30,000 taels of gold will not last long. If you ask the Crown Prince to provide relief, the Crown Prince will definitely do it. Why don't you go? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. If it was in the past, he might listen to me. But now it is not certain, Yi Fan answered. Why? Akatsuki asked. Because of you. Yi Fan stared into Akatsuki's eyes and said meaningfully. The Crown Prince liked Akatsuki, but Akatsuki liked Yi Fan. As a result, the relationship between Yi Fan and the Crown Prince became extremely delicate. Although the Crown Prince was the Emperor's star, he was still a man. Letting his love rival tell him what to do was simply impossible for a monarch to do. Upon hearing Yi Fan's words, the intelligent Akatsuki immediately understood. She blushed and did not speak. Whether or not those hundreds of thousands of disaster victims can survive will depend on you, Yi Fan continued. I understand. I will handle this matter, Akatsuki replied. When you go to the Forbidden City, remember to take Zishuan with you. Have the Crown Prince arrange a good place for her. This child is connected to me by fate, so I can't just find a random family to settle her down, Yi Fan added. Akatsuki nodded. Remember to go early and come back early. When you come back, wait for me at the Lingyun Cave. Don't wander around the Forbidden City, Yi Fan said meaningfully. Akatsuki pursed her lips and smiled. Yi Fan was reminding her not to stay in the Crown Prince's palace for too long. He was jealous. What? Are you afraid that I won't leave the Imperial Palace? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan with a smile. The Forbidden City is magnificent. I'm afraid that you will be dazzled and lose your way, Yi Fan replied with a smile. If they force me to stay, there's nothing I can do. Akatsuki stretched out her voice and looked up at the sky with a smile. With your current cultivation base, who can keep you? Yi Fan chuckled. If anyone forces you to stay, then use the 9 Lotus Heavenly Slash to chop them up. Akatsuki rolled her eyes at Yi Fan. She pretended to be angry, but her heart was filled with sweetness. 2 hours later, Akatsuki brought the little girl, who had already woken up, to the entrance of the cave. Yi Fan followed closely behind. Big brother, will I be able to see you again in the future? The little girl stopped in her tracks, turned around and asked Yi Fan in a childish voice. Of course. Yi Fan squatted down and held the little girl's hand with a smile. When you get married in the future, I will definitely attend your wedding. Then I must get married as soon as possible, the little girl said with an innocent expression. Ha ha ha, the little girl's naivety made Yi Fan burst into laughter. Akatsuki also had a smile on her face. Yi Fan was really charming. Even a 7-year-old girl liked him. Big brother, can you tell me your name? The little girl didn't laugh. Instead, she asked Yi Fan with a serious expression. My name is Bufan Yi. Yi Fan stopped laughing and replied with a serious expression. I will miss you, big brother Bufan. The little girl wrapped her arms around Yi Fan's neck and planted a kiss on Yi Fan's cheek. I will also miss Zishuan. Yi Fan patted the little girl's back with a smile. Akatsuki, who was standing behind the little girl, narrowed her eyes and looked at Yi Fan with a hint of jealousy on her face. Zishuan, it's getting late. You should go with big sister Hongji. Remember to listen to big sister Hongji. Yi Fan said to the little girl as he stood up. The little girl replied with a smile. We're going, big brother Bufan. Akatsuki hugged the little girl in her arms and said to Yi Fan in a long tone. Take care, little sister Hongji. Yi Fan said sweetly as he pinched his thumb and middle finger together. The little girl was amused by Yi Fan's appearance and giggled. Red Moon, on the other hand, retched in an exaggerated manner. She flicked her sleeves and opened the cave door. Then, she rode on the auspicious clouds and flew away. Seeing the auspicious clouds disappear into the distance, Yi Fan heaved a long sigh of relief. He didn't tell Akatsuki about his plan to enter the Devil's Pond again. She was already very worried about him cultivating the dragon traversing the heavens. If she knew that he was preparing to enter the 4 Devil's Ponds, she would be unable to sleep at night. He had no choice but to send Akatsuki away. Boom! The stone door of the Lingyun cave slammed shut. Fire Kirin, Xiao Zhao, let's go. Yi Fan turned around and said to the Kirin and Fox, who were munching on fruits, whoosh, 2 figures appeared out of thin air in front of the huge and luxurious Devil's Palace. The black-robed, silver-haired Yi Fan and the beautiful Yumoji. Yumoji was Yi Fan's confidant. She was also Yi Fan's legal wife. Of course, Yi Fan had to bring her along when he returned to the Devil Realm to cultivate. Baihu lay obediently in Yumoji's arms and blinked her eyes. The Fire Kirin followed behind Yi Fan and shook its majestic dragon head. Greetings, Devil King and Devil Queen. Seeing the Devil King and Devil Queen appear out of thin air, the guards at the Devil's Palace immediately knelt on one knee and bowed to the 2 of them. Stand up and speak, Yumoji said to the 2 of them. Thank you, Devil King and Devil Queen. They said in unison, stood up from the ground, and slowly opened the huge gate of the demonic realm. The Devil King and Devil Queen, a Kirin and a Fox, slowly walked into the Devil Realm. Whoosh! Seeing the Devil King and Devil Queen appear together, the Devil Sons and Devil Grandsons in the Devil Realm immediately knelt down and bowed to the 2 of them. Yi Fan smiled and nodded at the crowd. Yumoji waved her hand to signal them to rise. One of them was the hero who saved the Devil Realm, while the other was the most beautiful woman in the Devil Realm. They were a perfect match. Madam, let's not disturb the people. Yi Fan turned around and held Yumoji's slender hand as he spoke. Yumoji replied with a smile. As the 2 of them spoke, their feet slowly left the ground and floated into the air. The Fire Kirin stepped on the air and flew up as well. Their robes and long hair fluttered in the wind. The Fire Kirin was covered in raging flames and auspicious light. After the time it took to finish a cup of tea, the 2 of them slowly landed in front of the Heavenly Devil Palace. Chapter 977. Greetings, Demon Lord and Demon Queen. In front of the Heavenly Devil Palace, the golden-armored general bowed to Yi Fan and Yumoji. General, please rise. Yi Fan said to the golden-armored general. Thank you, Demon Lord and Demon Queen. The golden-armored general said as he stood up. We are here to pay our respects to the Demon Lord. May I know if the Demon Lord is still in the palace? Yi Fan asked the golden-armored general. Demon Lord, the Demon Lord is not in the heavenly devil palace. The golden-armored general replied respectfully. The Demon Lord is not in the palace? Yumoji asked, where did he go? Demon Queen, the Demon Lord was invited by the Demon Lord to attend a banquet in the demon realm. The golden-armored general replied. When will he return? Yumoji asked. I don't know. The golden-armored general replied respectfully. Yumoji nodded slowly. If that's the case, let's return to the Emerald Palace first. Yi Fan turned around and said to Yumoji. Okay. Yumoji nodded. Phew, the two of them slowly rose into the air and flew towards the Emerald Palace. Farewell, Demon Lord and Demon Queen. The golden-armored general bowed to the two of them and said respectfully. Moji, return to the Emerald Palace to rest. I'll go to the Night Demon Peak to pay my respects to the Demon Lord. I'll be back soon. Yi Fan said to Yumoji in the air. Like Akatsuki, Yi Fan did not tell Yumoji about his intention to enter the Devil Pool again. If Yumoji knew about it, she would definitely oppose it. The reason was simple. Since ancient times, other than the demon lords who had the connate demon blood, no one had ever entered all 5 devil pools at the same time. To be able to enter one of the 5 great devil pools and then smoothly leave was already 1 in 10,000. To be able to enter all 5 great devil pools at the same time was simply a fantasy. Pay respects to the Demon Lord? Yumoji asked Yi Fan. She was puzzled by Yi Fan's idea. It was not the ancestral worship ceremony, nor was it a festival in the demon realm. Why would Yi Fan suddenly think of worshipping the demon ancestor? Ever since I obtained the heavenly demon's power and became the ruler of the demon realm, I have yet to pay my respects to the demon Alpha, Yi Fan said to Yumoji. Now that I have the time to return to the demon realm to recuperate, I have to pay my respects to the demon Alpha. Otherwise, it would be rude. That's true. After hearing what Yi Fan said, Yumoji suddenly felt that it made sense. Go back to the Jade Palace and wait for me. I will be back soon, Yi Fan said to Yumoji with a smile. Okay, I will prepare the food and wine. I will wait for your return, Yumoji said to Yi Fan thoughtfully. Help me take care of Xiao Zhao and Fire Kirin. As Yi Fan spoke to Yumoji, he changed directions and used his movement technique. Shua! A streak of red starlight appeared out of thin air and sped toward the Night Demon Peak. Looking at Yi Fan's departing figure, Yumoji frowned. For some reason, she felt that something was amiss. However, she couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong with her at the moment. Shua! Under the pure black Night Demon Peak, the black-robed, silver-haired Yi Fan appeared out of thin air. With his silver hair fluttering in the wind, he stood with his hands behind his back and looked up at the peak of Night Demon Peak. The mountain was thousands of feet tall, and its cliffs were cut to form a peak. It was like a gigantic sword that pierced through the clouds. Between the cracks of the mountain, countless dazzling red lights flowed like fresh blood. Those who wished to enter the heavenly demon realm would have to walk through Night Demon Peak alone. In Night Demon Peak, apart from the demon lords of the past, everyone in the demon realm would lose their spiritual energy and cultivation. The words that Tenmoni said back then still echoed in Yi Fan's ears. Now that he had obtained the heavenly demon's power from the blood demon pool and was the ruler of the demon realm, he wondered if he could break this taboo. Let's give it a try. At the thought of this, Yi Fan activated the heavenly demon's power. Buzz! Yi Fan's body instantly emitted a red glow. Seeing this, Yi Fan was overjoyed. Now that he could use his spiritual energy, he did not need to climb up with his bare hands. However, his thinking was too simple. Whoosh! Just as he was about to use his movement technique and soar into the air, the crimson light that was still expanding suddenly turned into countless fragments of light and fell down. The scene in front of him made Yi Fan frown. The heavenly demon's power had disappeared. Tenmoni was right. Without the pure connate demon blood, even his heavenly demon's power would not be able to break the taboo of Night Demon Peak. It seemed like he could only climb with his bare hands. Yi Fan thought to himself as he walked toward Night Demon Peak. The last time he climbed Night Demon Peak, Yi Fan used an entire night. However, this time, he only used 2 hours. Although he could not use the heavenly demon's power, his primordial spirit had already been baptized by the heavenly thunder and was no longer the same as before. Whoosh! When he was less than 100 feet away from the peak, Yi Fan exerted strength in his hands and leaped to the peak. Phew! Yi Fan heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he did not waste time on the road. As Yi Fan thought to himself, he looked up at the heavenly demon cave that was dozens of feet away. Whoosh! Black, red, green, blue, and yellow light shot out from the heavenly demon cave that was like a slit. It was brilliant. The slit was only about a foot wide and could barely accommodate one person. After obtaining the heavenly demon's power, he never thought that he would come here again. He did not expect that not only would he have to visit this place again, but he would also have to enter the demon pool again. Yi Fan thought to himself as he walked into the heavenly demon cave. After passing through a long and narrow slit, his eyes suddenly opened up. Compared to the long and narrow entrance of the cave, the inside of the cave was extremely spacious. Inside the heavenly demon cave, 5 colored clouds rose densely, as if it was a paradise. On the ground below the clouds, 5 devil's pools of different sizes and colors came into view. Black, red, green, yellow, and blue. 5-colored light was released from the inside and outside of the 5 demonic pools, illuminating the entire heavenly demon cave with dazzling 5-colored brilliance. Tap, tap, tap with his hands behind his back, Yi Fan walked down the stairs slowly. Gurgle, as soon as Yi Fan appeared, the water in the golden demonic pool immediately began to surge violently. In the churning pool, a half-naked peerless beauty with a curvaceous figure slowly floated up, like a lotus flower emerging from the water. Her long hair draped over her shoulders, delicate and alluring, soft and round breasts, and creamy skin. A charming smile hung on her incomparably beautiful face. This person was none other than the demonic spirit of the Desire Demon Pool, Yuji. "Io, look who's here!" Yuji said to Yi Fan in a sweet voice as she swayed her slender waist and slowly came to the side of the pool. Chapter 978. Yi Fan raised his head to look at Yuji, who was completely naked, and ignored her. "What, don't you remember me, Lord Demon Lord?" Yuji, who was completely naked, looked at Yi Fan with her charming eyes and asked with a lewd smile. "Even if you turn into ashes, I will recognize you." Yi Fan, with his hands behind his back, said to Yuji as he slowly walked to the first devil's pool. The devil's pool in front of him was glowing with green light, filled with evil aura, and was bottomless. In the dark green pool, a human face pattern floated on it. The human face pattern was complete with a nose and mouth, looking at Yi Fan with an evil smile. This pool was the first of the 5 devil's pools, the evil devil's pool. "I didn't expect Lord Demon Lord to still remember me, Yuji." Yuji leaned her naked body on the shore of the pool, flipped her long hair, and smiled with amorous feelings. Yi Fan didn't speak, but stretched out his right hand, scooped up a handful of water from the evil devil's pool, and examined it in front of his eyes. The pool in his hand was emitting green smoke, and the evil aura was boiling. What a strong evil aura! Yi Fan was shocked. "I say, Lord Demon Lord, you didn't come to the heavenly devil cave just to see me, right?" Yuji asked Yi Fan with a smile. Yi Fan was now the king of the devil world, who had obtained the power of the heavenly devil. This time, he must not have come here for nothing. "Why can't I?" Yi Fan poured the green pool water back into the pool, and asked Yuji with a smile. "Lord Demon Lord is really funny. You have the number 1 beauty of the devil world, Umoji, accompanying you. How could you think of Yuji?" Yuji asked Yi Fan in a sweet voice as she reached out to stir the golden pool water under her. "In terms of coquettishness, in terms of lasciviousness, if you, Yuji, claim to be number 2, Who dares to claim to be number one? Yi Fan looked up at Yuji and said with a smile. Yuji was taken aback at first, and then laughed. Ha ha ha! Yuji laughed out loud. Could it be that Lord Devil Monarch is tired of playing with beauties and wants to change his taste, so he came to this heavenly devil cave to find me for entertainment? You guessed right. I'm really here to have some fun with you. As Yi Fan spoke, he began to take off his clothes piece by piece. In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan had taken off all the clothes on his body. Looking at Yi Fan's white and strong naked body, Yuji's eyes lit up and she couldn't take her eyes off him. She stuck out her smooth and soft tongue and constantly licked between her lips and teeth. Her hands stroked back and forth all over her body. Her charming eyes were like silk, burning with desire. In her opinion, Yi Fan was deliberately making fun of her and teasing her. But speaking of which, even if he couldn't obtain Yi Fan, being able to see the Demon Lord's perfect body was still a feast for his eyes. He would have no regrets in this life. Don't worry, I'll take a bath in the devil pool first, and then I'll accompany you. Looking at the devil spirit Yuji in the devil pool, Yi Fan folded his clothes neatly and gently placed them on the stone platform, and said calmly. As soon as Yi Fan said this, Yuji, who was burning with desire, instantly stopped moving, and her eyes were filled with shock. You want to enter the evil devil pool? Yuji asked in surprise. Not only do I want to enter the evil devil pool, I also want to enter the devil pool, the dead devil pool, and your desire devil pool. Yi Fan straightened up and said. Hearing Yi Fan's words, devil spirit Yuji immediately understood the purpose of Yi Fan's trip. You want to obtain the power of the 5 great devil pools? Yuji's almond-shaped eyes slightly wrinkled as she asked in shock. That's right, Yi Fan said as he looked down at the green evil devil pool and prepared to step into it. Wait a minute. Seeing that Yi Fan was about to enter the pool, Yuji immediately stopped Yi Fan. The naked Yi Fan turned his head and looked at Yuji. Although you are the Devil King, you don't have the pure bloodline of the innate devil blood, so you can't enter the 5 great devil pools at the same time. Didn't your wife tell you about these taboos? Yuji asked Yi Fan. I know about these taboos, Yi Fan said calmly, but I need power. You have now obtained the most overbearing heavenly devil power of the 5 great devil pools. Are you still not satisfied? Yuji asked Yi Fan. The heavenly devil power is far from enough. Yi Fan replied. Do you know what will happen if you enter the 5 great devil pools at the same time without the innate devil blood? Yuji asked Yi Fan. You will know once you try. Yi Fan replied. As he spoke, he took a step forward and stepped into the pool of evil demons. Green ripples appeared on the surface of the evil devil pool and slowly spread out. Yi Fan entered the pool. Yuji's eyes widened as she looked at Yi Fan, who was slowly entering the pool in disbelief. Since the devil ancestor created the 5 great devil pools, she had seen countless people who pursued power, but she had never seen someone like Yi Fan. He had already obtained the heavenly devil power and became the Devil King, but he still wanted to obtain all the power of the 5 great devil pools. What was he going to do? Why did he do this? Who was he going to deal with that even the heavenly devil power was no match for him? Yuji, who was completely naked, could not understand Yi Fan's reckless actions, no matter how much she thought about it. Huff, Yi Fan slowly exhaled and completely immersed his body in the evil devil pool, leaving only his head above the water surface. As soon as Yi Fan entered the evil devil pool, the water in the pool instantly glowed green. Dozens of slender rays of green light snaked up Yi Fan's neck and climbed up his body. Yi Fan closed his eyes and allowed the evil spirits to enter his body. In less than a moment, dozens of green lights came to the center of Yi Fan's eyebrows and gathered. After concentrating in one spot, the dazzling green light began to slowly split in 4 directions, up, down, left, and right. In an instant, a green, inverted swastika character appeared out of thin air between Yi Fan's eyebrows. The moment the bright green swastika character condensed, Yi Fan's mind replayed the scene that had appeared before. Above the rolling dark clouds in the sky, a few immortals from the upper realms stepped on a cloud and glared angrily at a young man clad in a long bluish-green robe. Their bodies were shrouded in auspicious lights and auspicious mists. Eldritch, an immortal in a white robe, pointed at the young man and said sternly, "You used your cultivation to torment living beings and harm countless people. What you have done is intolerable. We are ordered to take you back to the upper realm and wait for your punishment." "Humph," the young man sneered. "Torment living beings? Harm countless people? You are really an official. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." "What? Did we accuse you wrongly?" Another immortal in a brocade robe and holding a sword said, "You have killed a lot of people, haven't you? I'm afraid you have killed more than a few thousand people. I have cultivated for more than 500 years in the CI family," the young man said with a smile. "Even if I count the number of people I killed in 5,000, I only killed about 10 people a year. You immortals always bring disasters and plagues, killing thousands of people every time. Compared to you, do you think I killed a lot of people?" The scene of him fighting the 6 immortals appeared in Yi Fan's mind again. At this time, Yi Fan was frowning, and he had a splitting headache. He had entered the evil pool. The evil pool was full of evil energy. The evil energy in the evil pool directly stimulated the innate evil energy in Yi Fan's body, causing Yi Fan to recall the scene more than 300 years ago. Looking at Yi Fan in the evil pool, who was surrounded by green light and had a splitting headache, Lady Yuji in the evil pool frowned and felt her heart in her throat. For some reason, she was very worried about the new Demon King. Swoosh! Just as Lady Yuji was worried, Yi Fan in the evil pool suddenly opened his eyes. Swoosh! The moment Yi Fan opened his eyes, 2 green lights shot out from his eyes. Boom! A huge green flame rose from Yi Fan's body into the sky. In the flame, Yi Fan's eyes were green, and the swastika on his forehead was flowing with green light, and evil energy was flowing. He had obtained the evil energy in the evil pool. Lady Yuji was delighted, but she was shocked. In the flame, the naked Yi Fan slowly stood up from the pool. Splash! Countless streams of evil demon pond water, flickering with green light, flowed down from his fair and strong body. Covered in the flame, he slowly walked out of the evil pool and went directly to the next evil pool, the Demon pool. At this time, there was an imperceptible evil smile on his face. "Take a rest first, wait for your evil spirit to completely return to your body, then you can enter." Seeing that Yi Fan had just walked out of the evil pool and was about to enter the Demon pool, Lady Yuji immediately reminded him. Plop! Before Yuji could finish speaking, Yi Fan leaped into the Demon pool filled with surging blue light and Chi. Buzz! As soon as Yi Fan entered the Demon pool, the blue light flashing in the Demon pool instantly became misty and dense. In the blue mist, a snake-like monster that was several feet long and as thick as a bowl slowly floated up from the pool. The reason why it was called a snake-like monster was because although this monster had a snake body, it had a human face. What kind of human face was this? Its eyes were long and narrow, and its gaze was vicious. Its nose was collapsed, and it was extremely ugly. Its sharp teeth were dense, and its long tongue was sticking out. Around its body, evil energy was surging, and blue light shot out in all directions. Yi Fan's mouth curved and he closed his eyes. Swoosh! The moment Yi Fan closed his eyes, the snake-like monster immediately coiled around Yi Fan's entire body. It flicked its dark blue tongue as its snake body moved back and forth on Yi Fan's body. Its long and narrow eyes were filled with hatred as it stared fixedly at Yi Fan. Hiss! Seeing that Yi Fan was as firm as a rock, the monster snake instantly let out a hiss. Buzz! At the moment of the hiss, countless bright blue light shot out from the monster snake's mouth. The blue light surged like a blue waterfall and engulfed Yi Fan in an instant. Yi Fan, who had an evil smile on his face, did not move at all, allowing the evil spirit to enter his body. Buzz, as the blue light slowly entered his body, the swastika on Yi Fan's forehead turned into a sapphire blue. The blue light flowed and evil energy rose. As Yi Fan had already experienced the innate ferocious force from the flaming meteor, the Devil's Pool was easier for him. Boom! Chapter 979. Yi Fan had also obtained the Demon Pool's terminating power. In the Desire Demon Pool, the naked Yuji exclaimed in shock. This demon lord was indeed the reincarnation of Eldritch. In less than half an incense's time, he had obtained all the powers of the two demon pools. Splash, amidst the soaring blue flames, the naked Yi Fan slowly stood up from the demon pool and walked toward the third demon pool. The third demon pool was called the Dead Demon Pool. The water of this pool was as black as ink, lifeless, and shrouded in black light. Plop. Yi Fan, who had arrived in front of the Dead Demon Pool, lifted his leg and stepped into the Dead Demon Pool. Compared to the two demon pools earlier, the water of this Dead Demon Pool was extremely cold and piercing. Yi Fan, who was sitting in the pool, placed his arms on both sides of the pool, leaned back, and slowly closed his eyes. From the beginning to the end, Yi Fan's evil smile was still hanging on his face. The power of the Blood Demon Pool, the Evil Demon Pool, and the Demon Pool had already begun to affect his personality. Gurgle. The moment Yi Fan closed his eyes, the pitch-black water began to surge violently. Roar, along with the eerie and terrifying low roars, countless evil spirits and ghosts slowly emerged from the churning black pool. Some of them had disheveled hair, some had broken limbs, some were bleeding from all orifices, and some had long tongues. It was a hair-raising sight. Whoosh, in an instant, a chilly wind blew, and the atmosphere was eerie. These evil spirits were none other than the people who had come to Night Demon Peak after countless difficulties and dangers, but had died on the way. Those who died on the way to Night Demon Peak would have their souls sucked into the Dead Demon Pool and become a part of the pool's power. Since these people could come to Night Demon Peak, they were definitely not ordinary people. Now they were no longer ordinary evil spirit. Instead, they had become dead devils. With the addition of their souls, the power of the Dead Demon Pool could be imagined. Facing the densely packed dead demons, Yi Fan remained unmoved. Roar. Woo! Countless dead devils let out horrifying roars as they climbed onto Yi Fan's body. Some of them climbed onto Yi Fan's shoulders and eyed Yi Fan covetously. Some of them circled around Yi Fan's neck with greedy eyes and drooled. Some of them even climbed onto Yi Fan's head and cackled at Yi Fan. In the blink of an eye, Yi Fan was completely surrounded by the undead devils. The group of demons roared, and the aura of death rose. Seeing this, Yuji, who was in the Lust Demon Pool, immediately turned her head to the side and couldn't bear to look at it. Of the 5 great demonic pools, the most terrifying one was the Dead Demonic Pool. Even as a devil spirit, she had to stay away from him. In order to pursue power, this devil lord was really going all out. I wonder what the reincarnation of Eldritch will become after he leaves the pool of dead demons. Yuji thought in her heart. Buzz. As Yuji thought in her heart, the pool of dead demons changed again. The countless dead devils that covered Yi Fan's body instantly turned into countless black smoke. The black smoke first rose and then meandered into Yi Fan's eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Buzz. As the black smoke flew into his body, Yi Fan's body suddenly shone with a black light and flames. Whoosh. Immediately after, a black light flowed and dazzling swastika appeared on Yi Fan's forehead out of thin air. He had already obtained all the dead devil powers in the pool of dead demons. He had already obtained 4 of the devil spirit powers in the 5 great demonic pools, and he was only missing the extreme desire power in the lust demon pool. At this time, Yi Fan's face had an additional layer of dead qi. Whoosh, whoosh, surrounded by the black light. He had an evil smile on his face as he slowly got up and walked out of the pool of dead demons. It's your turn this time, Yi Fan said with an evil smile as he walked in front of the lust demon pool. Looking at the naked and majestic Devil King in front of her, Yuji's breathing in the lust demon pool suddenly became rapid. Splash! Yi Fan raised his leg and stepped into the lust demon pool that was rippling with golden light. Seeing Yi Fan enter the lust demon pool, Yuji's breathing quickened and she instinctively took 2 steps back. Since ancient times, countless power seekers had stepped into the lust demon pool. Power, beauty, they all wanted it. Facing these greedy and lustful fellows, Yuji would always take the initiative to seduce them and absorb their essence without leaving a drop behind. In order to obtain the lust demon pool, one had to endure their own desires and at the same time, they had to achieve lust in the form but not in the spirit. The so-called lust in the form but not in the spirit meant that in order to obtain the lust demon pool, one had to make love with Yuji in the lust demon pool. However, during the entire process, one could not have any desire. Once the desire was blazing, all the essence of the primordial spirit would be instantly sucked away by Yuji and turned into ashes. How many people in the world could do this? The reason why Yuji avoided Yi Fan was not because she did not want to make love with Yi Fan, but because she was afraid that this devil monarch's primordial spirit would be sucked away by her and he would die on the spot. Yi Fan was the only man she had never seen who was not lustful. This made Yuji sigh with emotion. To be honest, she did not want Yi Fan to die in her hands. As for the reason, she could not explain it clearly. Weren't you hungry and thirsty just now? Why are you avoiding me now that I have entered the pool? Seeing that Yuji was avoiding him, Yi Fan, who had stepped into the lust demon pool, asked with an evil smile. You'd better leave the lust demon pool before I change my mind. The naked Yuji crossed her hands in front of her chest and then turned her head to the side and said coldly to Yi Fan. Yuji's reaction made Yi Fan, who was smiling evilly, frown. This Yuji has always been charming and lascivious. Why did she suddenly become pure? What's the matter with you? Yi Fan asked Yuji. You won't get my extreme desire power, Yuji said to Yi Fan. You should leave. I can't get it? Yi Fan asked Yuji. What do you mean? You can't get past me. Yuji replied coldly. Once you fail, not only will you not get my extreme desire power, but you will also lose your hard-earned power. How do you know I can't get past this? Yi Fan asked Yuji. If you want to obtain my extreme desire power, you must do 2 things. Yuji looked away and coldly said, as long as you do not do one thing, you will lose all of your power, turn into ashes, and die on the spot. What 2 things? Yi Fan asked. First, if you want to get the extreme desire power, you have to make love with me. Can you do it? Yuji turned her head to look at Yi Fan and asked. After Yi Fan heard this, he frowned. He thought that the Desire Devil Pool was the same as the other 4 devil pools. As long as he closed his eyes and let the power enter his primordial spirit, he didn't expect that the way to get the extreme desire power was in this way. How about it, can you do it? Yuji asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan lowered his head and remained silent. You can go. Yuji turned around and said to Yi Fan. Besides making love with you, what else do I have to do? After a long time, Yi Fan raised his head and asked Yuji with a frown. As soon as Yi Fan said this, Yuji was shocked. Can you do the first thing? Yuji asked in surprise. Yes. Yi Fan said resolutely and decisively. In order to defeat the heaven-defying Nangong Ao, in order to obtain the 9th divine cauldron, in order to save the true soul of his beloved wife, he had to obtain power. As long as he could obtain power, he was willing to pay any price. Aren't you afraid of betraying your Japanese wife? Aren't you afraid of betraying your devil-lord wife? Yuji's words were filled with shock. Tell me the second thing. Yi Fan didn't answer Yuji's question, but directly asked Yuji to say another condition. The second thing is that during the process of making love with me, you can't have any lust, Yuji said with a frown. I will use all kinds of methods to make you want to die. During the whole process, the greater the suffering you endure, the stronger the extreme desire power you will obtain. Once you have any desire, all your previous efforts will be wasted, your primordial spirit will be exhausted, and you will be reduced to ashes. After Yi Fan heard this, his frown deepened. He was a man of firm beliefs, but in the end, he was a man. A man with 7 emotions and 6 desires. The first thing that Yuji said could be done by gritting his teeth and hardening his heart, but the second thing was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Go, I'll pretend that you've never been here. As Yuji spoke, she slowly sank her flawless body into the golden pool. Wait a minute. Just as Yuji's body was about to sink into the golden pool, Yi Fan called out to her. Yi Fan's words made Yuji, whose shoulders were slightly exposed, stop moving. She turned her head to look at Yi Fan, her eyes filled with surprise. Come on. Yi Fan lowered his head and said calmly to Yuji. You can do it? Yuji asked in shock. I can do it, come on. Yi Fan's voice was filled with determination. There's no medicine for regret in this world, you have to think carefully, come on. Yi Fan interrupted Yuji and raised his head. You'd better go, don't joke with your life. Yuji said coldly. If I die you can get all my power. What, you don't want to? Yi Fan asked Yuji. You are a good man with affection and righteousness, I don't want you to die. Yuji said softly as she continued to sink slowly. What she said was from the bottom of her heart. Since ancient times, all the men she had seen had coveted her appearance and body. Only Yi Fan remained unmoved by her beauty. Because of this, she didn't want Yi Fan to take the risk. Voila, just as Yuji's body sank, the naked Yi Fan took a step forward and pulled the naked Yuji into his arms. He hugged Yuji's soft and boneless waist with one hand, and then steeled his heart and fiercely kissed Yuji's fragrant lips. Yuji let out a moan. Huff, 2 hours later, concubine Yuji collapsed in the desired devil pool. At this moment, she was panting and sweating profusely. She looked at Yi Fan with her charming eyes. Yi Fan was sitting on the shore of the pool, his body was fiery red, his eyes were bloodshot, and his breathing was heavy. In an instant, Yi Fan's body burst into golden light and flames soared into the sky. Hua! Chapter 980. Yi Fan had already obtained the power of extreme desire in the desired devil pool. You really can hold on. Yuhaim, who was exposed in the spring, leaned her body against the shore behind her, and said while panting, Since ancient times, except for the demon lords who possessed the bloodline of the demon ancestor, no one had ever been able to maintain a clear mind under her powerful offensive. Except for Yi Fan. During the whole process, although Yi Fan was soaring like a dragon and leaping like a tiger, he did not have a trace of lust. He had completely achieved the state of desire. Of course, the torment of the body also caused Yi Fan's body to turn red and his eyes to spit fire. Huff, huff, Yi Fan, who had obtained the power of extreme desire, gasped for breath, trying to calm the lust in his body. He had practiced so many cultivation techniques, but in terms of the degree of torment, none of them could compare to the desired devil pool. Yuhaim's strange technique made his body almost on the verge of exploding. For a full 2 hours it felt like a year to him. His body was fiery red and burning with desire. He slowly stood up from the golden desired devil pool and prepared to walk out of the desired devil pool. Voila, just as Yi Fan turned around, the naked Yuhaim suddenly hugged Yi Fan's majestic body from behind. Can you accompany me here for a while, just for a while? Yuhaim pressed her face tightly against Yi Fan's back and said softly. Yi Fan stood there quietly and did not move. He wanted to refuse Yuhaim, but he couldn't bear to do so. After all, she was the first woman he had sex with other than his beloved wife, Chiko Fujiwara. He didn't want to be a man who would pull up his pants and leave. Seeing Yi Fan's acquiescence, Yuhaim hugged his hand even tighter. For the first time in so many years, she felt her heart move for a man. She placed her soft and boneless hands on Yi Fan's chest and stroked back and forth, reluctant to part. Yi Fan frowned and grabbed Yuji's hand, stopping her touch. If Yuji continued to touch him like this, he was not sure if he would lose his mind. At this time, he had already obtained the power of the 5 great magic pools and could already be intimate with Yuji as he pleased. Practice the rules and practice the martial arts. Indulgence is indulgence. The two could not be confused. This was Yi Fan's principle. Alright, it's time for me to leave. Yi Fan moved Yuji's hand away from his chest, turned around and said to Yuji. However, Yuji hugged Yi Fan again. Will you come here to see me? Yuji's voice was a little choked up. I don't know. Yi Fan replied with a frown. Yi Fan's words made Yuji smile. Obviously, Yi Fan did not reject her. I really should go, Yi Fan said to Yuji, who was clinging to him. Only then did Yuji let go of Yi Fan. Voila, Yi Fan stepped out of the Desire Demon pool and put on his clothes one by one. Yuji lay on the bank of the pool, holding her chin with both hands, quietly watching Yi Fan put on his clothes, her eyes full of reluctance. I will miss you, Yuji said calmly. Yi Fan did not answer Yuji, and continued to put on his clothes. From now on, except for you, I will not be intimate with any other man, including the Demon Lord. Yuji continued. Yuji's words made Yi Fan's body shake, and he immediately stopped what he was doing. He turned around and looked at Yuji, his eyes full of surprise. Don't worry, I won't pester you, Yuji, who was holding her chin with both hands, said to Yi Fan with a smile. You know, I can't leave this magic pool. Even if I want to pester you, I can't do anything. Hearing Yuji's words, Yi Fan frowned. The performance of the demon spirit of desire today surprised him greatly. He had thought that this woman only knew how to make love with men, but now it seemed that he had really misunderstood her. At the thought of this woman guarding in this cold, heavenly devil cave for thousands of years, guarding in this cold and heartless pool, Yi Fan suddenly felt distressed for Yuji. A person guarding in a pool for thousands of years, this feeling was simply unimaginable to ordinary people. Let me tie the jade belt for you, okay? Yuji said to Yi Fan with a smile. Yi Fan pondered for a moment, then slowly came to Yuji, and handed the jade belt in his hand to Yuji. Voila, the naked Yuji stood up from the golden pool. She took the 7 jade belt from Yi Fan and thoughtfully tied it around Yi Fan's waist. You don't have to do this. Yi Fan stretched out his arms and said while letting Yuji tie the jade belt around his waist. A day as husband and wife is 100 days of grace, Yuji said without raising her head as she tidied up Yi Fan's clothes. Although you and I are not husband and wife in name, we are already husband and wife in reality. In your primordial spirit, there is already the power of my extreme desire. You can rest assured that I don't ask you to do anything for me, nor do I want any status. The extreme entanglement just now has already been engraved in my heart, and I have nothing else to ask for. From now on, I just want to protect your body, even if the sun and moon change, until the end of time. At this time, although Yuji had a smile on her face, her eyes were red. Yi Fan listened to him quietly. His heart was in turmoil and he had mixed feelings. Okay, you can go. After tying the jade belt for Yi Fan, Yuji looked up at Yi Fan and said with a smile. Yi Fan turned around and was ready to leave. Before you go, can you hug me? The moment he turned around, Yuji's voice came from behind Yi Fan. Yi Fan turned around and pulled Yuji into his arms. Thank you. Thank you. Yuji, who was lying on Yi Fan's chest, wept with joy and said in a choked voice. Yi Fan had already obtained the power of the 5 great demonic pools. After parting today, who knows when they will meet again. Take care of yourself if there is a chance. I will come to see you. As Yi Fan spoke, he steeled his heart, turned around, and walked out of the heavenly devil cave with large strides. At this time, in the Emerald Palace, the beautiful Yumoji was sitting in the luxurious hall, quietly waiting for Yi Fan to come back. On the square emerald table in front of her, there were dozens of delicious dishes. More than a dozen beautiful maids stood on both sides with their hands hanging down. Baihu Xiao Zhao and the blazing fire Kirin stood on the side, looking straight at the table full of delicacies, salivating. One must know that in the demon realm, the abundance of food and the rarity of the varieties were incomparable to the human world. Both of them were gluttons, so naturally, they were eager to see the delicacies in front of them. However, this was the demon realm, and there were many rules. Before the demon Lord Yi Fan returned, they couldn't eat as much as they could in the human world. It's been almost 3 hours, why hasn't Yi Fan returned from the Night Demon Peak to worship the demon ancestor? Yumoji wondered in her heart. Demon Empress, you go take a bath first. When the demon lord returns, we will report to you. A maid standing beside Yumoji said respectfully. That's good, Yumoji nodded and said, let the fire Kirin and Xiao Zhao eat first. When the demon lord returns, we will rearrange the banquet. Yes, the maids said in unison. Yumoji slowly stood up and followed the 2 maids into her and Yi Fan's luxurious bedroom, Yuhua Pavilion. You may leave first. After arriving at Yuhua Pavilion, Yumoji turned her head and said to the 2 maids behind her. She was used to bathing alone, and it was more comfortable that way. Yes, Demon Empress. The 2 maids bowed deeply to Yumoji, bowed and left. Yumoji took off all her clothes and slowly stepped into the jadeite bathtub filled with steam and flower petals. Phew, she leaned her body against the wall of the jadeite bathtub and slowly closed her eyes. At this moment in the hall, Baihu Xiao Zhao and the blazing fire Kirin were sitting around a huge jadeite table, munching and chowing down. Fire Kirin lowered its head and opened its mouth, then began to crazily devour all the rare fruits on the table. The white fox, on the other hand, jumped onto the emerald square table and started greeting the delicacies on the table. One was eating the rare fruits while the other was stuffing the delicacies with meat. The entire table was instantly occupied by the Qilin and the fox. More than 10 beautiful maids covered their mouths and laughed at the way they ate. Whoosh! At this moment, a dazzling red starlight appeared in front of everyone. Whoosh! After the light that filled the sky faded away, the silver-haired Yi Fan in his treasured robe appeared in an instant. Greetings, Demon Lord. Seeing the Demon Lord appear, the maids immediately lowered their heads, squatted, and bowed to Yi Fan. Where's Madam? Yi Fan looked around the hall and asked the maids. Demon Lord, Madam has been waiting for you for 4 hours. Seeing that you haven't returned, she returned to Yuhua Pavilion. A maid said respectfully to Yi Fan. Yi Fan nodded. Fire Kirin, Xiao Zhao, enjoy your meal. I'll go check on Moji. Yi Fan said to the Qilin and the fox as he walked into Yuhua Pavilion. Baihu continued to gorge herself. The fire Kirin, on the other hand, stopped eating immediately. Seeing Yi Fan walk into Yuhua Pavilion, the fire Kirin frowned and narrowed its eyes. It sensed a powerful spiritual energy from Yi Fan's body. The strength of this spiritual energy was not inferior to the power of the heavenly demon. In just a few hours Yi Fan had undergone such a shocking transformation. Roar! The fire Qilin let out a low groan as it was engulfed in raging flames. Thud, thud, thud. In Yuhua Pavilion, Yi Fan walked slowly. He walked into the bedroom with his hands behind his back. Inside the bedroom, there was no one. Yumoji was not in the bedroom. Yi Fan thought to himself. Splash, splash, behind the huge crystal screen, the sound of water splashing entered Yi Fan's ears. Yi Fan turned and looked at the crystal screen. Behind the translucent crystal screen, Yumoji's impressive figure was vaguely visible in front of Yi Fan. The scene in front of him made Yi Fan, who had been suffering in the desire demon pool for 2 hours, burn with desire. Whoosh! In a flash, Yi Fan appeared in front of Yumoji out of nowhere. Yi Fan? Yumoji, who was soaking in the jade bathtub, exclaimed with a red face. As she spoke, she pulled a silk bath towel to cover her naked body. Splash! Chapter 981. Yi Fan, what are you trying to do? Yumoji, who was in Yi Fan's arms, asked Yi Fan anxiously. Ever since they met, Yi Fan had always been courteous to her and had never crossed the line. Even on the night that she became the Demon King's wife, Yi Fan did not touch her at all. What is wrong with him today? Why would he suddenly? Huff, Yi Fan, who was hugging Yumoji, did not answer her. His eyes were burning, his face was red, and he was panting like a bull. He stared at Yumoji, who was in his arms. It was the extreme lust power. Looking at Yi Fan, who was burning with lust, Yumoji's expression changed drastically. Yi Fan had entered the desire demon pool. Yumoji was shocked. Yumoji knew about the desire demon pool better than anyone else. In order to obtain the extreme lust power, one had to have sex with the demon spirit in the pool. Moreover, one had to achieve sexual desire. Now, it seemed that Yi Fan had done it. His lust could not be quelled after suffering so much. That was why he Yi Fan, who was panting like a cow, had a sudden thought and instantly used his peerless movement technique. Swoosh, the two of them disappeared into thin air and reappeared on the jade bed. Yumoji was lying on the bed, her face flushed red. Swoosh, a red light flashed around Yi Fan and all his clothes were taken off. Yumoji turned her head away and closed her eyes, her face filled with shyness. She was now Yi Fan's legal wife. She had the responsibility and obligation to fulfill Yi Fan's request. Huff, the naked Yi Fan pounced on Yumoji. Huff, 2 hours later, Yi Fan was lying on the jade bed, panting heavily. Huff, Yumoji was sweating profusely. Her face was flushed red, and her chest was heaving up and down. You entered the desired devil pool, right? Yumoji leaned her head on Yi Fan's arm and asked Yi Fan while panting. Not only did I enter the desire demon pool, but I also entered the evil demon pool, the demon pool, and the dead demon pool. Yi Fan said as he hugged Yumoji's naked body. He stared at the ceiling and said. At this moment, his emotions were complicated. In just a few hours, he had sex with Yuji and Devil Queen Yumoji in the desired devil pool. Making love with Yuji was to obtain the power of extreme desire from the desired demon pool. Making love with Yumoji was because he couldn't control himself. Chico, I'm sorry. Yi Fan said guiltily. What? You entered 4 great magic pools at the same time. Hearing Yi Fan's words, Yumoji lifted her head from the jade pillow and asked in shock. Yi Fan looked at Yumoji and nodded slowly. You don't have the Demon Lord's connate demon blood. How can you enter 4 great magic pools at the same time? Do you want to die? Yumoji asked Yi Fan in shock. Don't worry, I'm fine now, aren't I? Yi Fan comforted Yumoji. Yumoji heaved a long sigh of relief and fell into Yi Fan's arms again. Yi Fan stroked Yumoji's shoulder and didn't say anything for a long time. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you regretting it? Yumoji asked Yi Fan gently. I didn't keep my promise and hurt Chico as well as you. Yi Fan murmured as he stared at the ceiling. I won't allow you to say that. Yumoji stroked Yi Fan's chest and said gently, She is your wife in the human world and I am your wife in the demon world. You didn't do anything wrong. Yi Fan heaved a long sigh of relief and didn't say anything else, Hugh, above the clouds, Akatsuki was riding on the auspicious clouds with the phoenix wing saber in her hand. She was heading towards the capital. Her cultivation was no longer what it used to be. Riding on the clouds was just a small trick for her. Under her urging, the auspicious cloud moved as fast as the wind and lightning. In less than an hour, it arrived above the Forbidden City. It was almost dusk and the Forbidden City's gates were already closed. Schwa, on the auspicious clouds, Akatsuki disappeared with a thought. A bright red light appeared out of nowhere and whizzed towards the Crown Prince's palace in the Forbidden City. At this time, the Crown Prince was sitting in front of a table in the Crown Prince's palace. He was carefully reviewing the memorials that were submitted to him. Several palace maids gently lit the candles in the palace and then carefully covered it with a delicate lampshade. The old eunuch stood quietly behind the Crown Prince with a horsetail whisk in his hand. He closed his eyes slightly and didn't move. "Your Highness, she is here." When Akatsuki arrived above the Forbidden City, the old eunuch slowly opened his eyes and said to the Crown Prince, "Who is here?" The Crown Prince asked the old eunuch without raising his head as he read the memorials with a red pen. "It's the person that your Highness called in your sleep." The old eunuch replied calmly. As soon as the old eunuch said that, the Crown Prince, who was focused on reading the memorials, stopped writing and raised his head. "You mean Hongji?" The Crown Prince turned his head to look at the old eunuch and asked in surprise. The old eunuch nodded slightly. "She is here? Where is she?" The Crown Prince put down the pen and asked in surprise. The old eunuch stretched out his hand and pointed outside the palace. Whoosh! At this time, a bright red star swooped in from outside the palace. Whoosh! After the red starlight dissipated, Yu Hongji, dressed in red, slowly floated down from the sky. "Greetings to your Highness." After appearing, the veiled Akatsuki bowed to the Crown Prince and said, "Hongji." When he saw Yu Hongji, whom he had been thinking about day and night, appear in front of him, the Crown Prince was overjoyed. He stood up from the throne, then quickly walked down the stairs and trotted to Akatsuki. Seeing the Crown Prince in front of her, Akatsuki took 3 steps back and lowered her head. She wanted to keep a distance from the Crown Prince. Akatsuki's action made the Crown Prince's heart turn cold. "Hongji," the Crown Prince frowned and said, "Your Highness, please call me Akatsuki." Akatsuki said respectfully to the Crown Prince, "Not everyone can call her by the name Hongji." Hearing Akatsuki's words, the Crown Prince's frown deepened. He quietly looked at Akatsuki in front of him, and his heart felt like it fell into an ice cellar. "Miss you, what brings you to the Crown Prince Palace?" The old eunuch flashed and appeared beside the Crown Prince and asked Akatsuki. He was trying to smooth things over for the Crown Prince. "Reporting to your Highness, Buffon asked me to tell your Highness that there is a drought in the 2 provinces, and the people are displaced. 9 out of 10 houses are empty. Along the way there are corpses everywhere. Your Highness, please send people to help. Otherwise it will become a hell on earth." Akatsuki said respectfully to the Crown Prince. "A drought in the 2 provinces? 9 out of 10 houses?" The Crown Prince was shocked. Chapter 982. When did this happen? The Crown Prince frowned and asked Akatsuki. "Yi Fan saw it with his own eyes when he passed by Liangguang on a cloud yesterday. He even saved a little girl there." Akatsuki explained the entire incident to the Crown Prince. After the Crown Prince heard it, his brows furrowed. He only knew that there was a locust plague in Hunan, a plague in the southwest, and a rain disaster in the south. He knew nothing about the drought in Liangguang. The governor of Liangguang, Chen Aimin, did not mention a single word about the drought in his report. "Where is the child now?" the Crown Prince asked Akatsuki. "I've brought the child here." Akatsuki waved her sleeves as she spoke. Buzz, after a flash of red light, a little girl in plain clothes appeared out of thin air. As they had to walk on the cloud when they came, and the little girl's body was mortal, she could not withstand the wind and cold air at high altitude. Hence, Akatsuki used invisible spiritual energy to wrap her up and used the Japanese ninjutsu to hide her figure. This was to prevent the little girl from being frightened by the high altitude. After appearing, the little girl was immediately stunned by the majestic Crown Prince Palace in front of her. She held Akatsuki's hand tightly and looked timidly at the noble man in the dragon robe in front of her. Zishuan, this is the Crown Prince of this dynasty. Quickly greet the Crown Prince. Akatsuki squatted down and said to the little girl, "Greetings to the Crown Prince." Upon hearing that the person in front of her was the Crown Prince, the little girl immediately knelt down and touched the ground with her head. She did not even dare to breathe loudly. For her, the county magistrate was already high and mighty, let alone the Crown Prince. Now she understood that this was the imperial palace, the Forbidden City. "Stand up and speak." The Crown Prince helped the little girl up and said kindly. The little girl stood up, her face full of nervousness. "What is your name?" The Crown Prince asked the little girl. I'm Zhou Zishuan." The little girl replied timidly. "Where do you live? Where are your parents?" The Crown Prince bent down and asked the little girl. "My family lives in Guangxi Sujiabao. My father was seriously ill and passed away 3 years ago. My mother, she gave me all her food, and then..." At the mention of her mother, the little girl started sobbing. The Crown Prince's eyes reddened. He squatted down and reached out to hold the little girl's hands. "Zixien, don't cry. This Crown Prince will help you." The Crown Prince wiped the little girl's tears and said. The little girl nodded while crying. "Fulin, immediately issue a decree to dismiss Governor Chen Aimin and hand him over to the Supreme Court to investigate this matter. In addition, order the Ministry of Revenue to transfer funds from the warehouse and send them urgently to the 2 provinces to provide relief to the victims." The Crown Prince stood up and turned to the old eunuch. "Yes, Your Highness," the old eunuch said respectfully. "Also, from today onwards, I will take Zixien as my adopted daughter. She will be named Princess Annal. You will write a decree and announce it to the world." The Crown Prince said to the old eunuch. "This old servant will do it right away," the old eunuch said as he turned around and left. The Crown Prince's words surprised and delighted Akatsuki. This Crown Prince was indeed worthy of being the descendant of the Emperor's star. He really loved the people like his own children. He even took the refugee's daughter as his adopted daughter and gave her the title of princess. "I thank Your Highness on behalf of Yi Fan." Akatsuki lowered her head and said to the Crown Prince with cupped hands. "This has nothing to do with Yi Fan." The Crown Prince reached out and picked up the little girl who was crying. He wiped her tears and said, "As the ruler of a country, I don't even know the suffering of the people. I am so stupid. I took Zixien as my adopted daughter and kept her by my side. First, I feel sorry for this child and want her to have a good home. Second, I want to remind myself not to be an incapable ruler who knows nothing about the suffering of the people." Akatsuki nodded slowly. Her eyes were full of praise. This Crown Prince understood the feelings of the people and loved them like his own children. He would definitely be a great ruler in the future. "What about Yi Fan? How is he now?" the Crown Prince asked Akatsuki. "He is very good now. He is just too busy," Akatsuki replied. "If you see him, say hello to him for me," the Crown Prince said to Akatsuki. "I will definitely pass on Your Highness's words," Akatsuki said. The Crown Prince nodded. "The matter is done. I should go," Akatsuki said to the Crown Prince. She looked at the little girl. "Zixien, you stay in the Forbidden City. Remember to listen to your adoptive father. If there is a chance in the future, Sister Hongji and your brother Bufan will come here to see you." The little girl in the Crown Prince's arms looked at Akatsuki reluctantly. She pursed her lips and nodded. "You are leaving now?" The Crown Prince frowned and asked Akatsuki. It is getting late. Yi-fan is still waiting for me. I should go back. Akatsuki cupped her hands and said to the Crown Prince, Your Highness, take care of yourself. I will take my leave. Akatsuki said. She turned around and prepared to use her body movement to leave this place. Miss Yu, please wait. The Crown Prince's voice came from behind Akatsuki. Your Highness, is there anything else? Akatsuki turned around and asked the Crown Prince. After parting today, I don't know when I will see Miss Yu again, the Crown Prince said to Akatsuki. I have prepared a gift for Miss Yu. I planned to give it to you in the future. Since you and I have met today, I will give it to you, the Crown Prince said. He put the little girl down and returned to the table. He took out a scroll from a celadone cylinder. The scroll was wrapped in golden silk and looked extremely exquisite. This is a small token of my appreciation. Miss Yu, please accept it. The Crown Prince walked slowly to Akatsuki and handed the scroll to Akatsuki with both hands. Throughout the entire process, the Crown Prince's gaze never left Akatsuki's eyes. This is, Akatsuki frowned and asked. If it was something too valuable, she would not accept it. There is a painting inside. I will give it to you, the Crown Prince said to Akatsuki. Thank you, Your Highness. Akatsuki took the scroll with both hands and said respectfully. I hope we will have a chance to meet again in the future, the Crown Prince said gently. Akatsuki did not say anything. She nodded respectfully to the Crown Prince, then turned around and used her body movement technique. Whoosh! A dazzling red star appeared out of thin air. The star shot out of the hall and into the 9 heavens. The Crown Prince quickly walked out of the hall and looked up. The blood-red starlight instantly cut through the night sky and disappeared into the boundless horizon. The falling flower wishes to follow the flowing water, but the flowing water has no heart to love the falling flower. Sigh, the Crown Prince sighed as he watched the dazzling star disappear into the distance. An hour later, Akatsuki returned to the Lingyun cave. Yi-fan, Yi-fan. Akatsuki called out Yi-fan's name when she returned to the cave. The Lingyun cave was empty. Clearly, Yi-fan had not returned. Akatsuki placed the phoenix wing saber on the stone table, then took off her red veil. She rolled up her sleeves and walked into the kitchen. She wanted to prepare a sumptuous banquet for Yi-fan. Buzz, after half an incense's time, Yi-fan's figure appeared behind Akatsuki. At this time, Akatsuki was focused on frying in front of the stove. She did not notice that Yi-fan was already standing behind her. Yi-fan had already obtained the power of the 5 great magic pools, so his cultivation had reached a new level. Even though Akatsuki's cultivation was not the same as before, she did not notice Yi-fan's appearance. You're really virtuous, Yi-fan, who was standing behind Akatsuki, said as he stretched out his hand and hugged Akatsuki's waist from behind. Akatsuki let out a scream and instinctively turned around. At this time, she was wearing an apron and holding a metal ladle. She looked at Yi-fan in shock. Yi-fan? When did you come back? Phew! Before Akatsuki could finish speaking, Yi-fan kissed Akatsuki's red lips. Akatsuki was caught off guard and let out a moan. Yi-fan was actually kissing her. Clang! The metal ladle in Akatsuki's hand fell to the ground. She was at a loss and her beautiful eyes were wide open. She did not know where to put her hands. Thump, thump, Akatsuki could only feel her heart pounding, as if it would jump out of her chest at any time. Did you miss me, Yi-fan moved away from Akatsuki's red lips and asked with narrowed eyes. When she saw Yi-fan in front of her, the blushing Akatsuki suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. At this time, Yi-fan's face was full of evil. His body was surrounded by a murderous aura, and his eyes were full of lust. In his eyes, a golden light was flickering. You, what happened to you? Akatsuki asked Yi-fan in shock. Why, is there something wrong? Yi-fan asked with a smile and hugged Akatsuki even tighter. How did you become like this? Akatsuki asked anxiously. At this time, Yi Fan was a completely different person from before. You don't like it? Yi Fan asked and kissed Akatsuki again. Akatsuki pushed Yi Fan away with both hands. There was something wrong with Yi Fan. Bang! Akatsuki's strength was not what it used to be. After being pushed by her, Yi Fan hit the stone wall. You're really strong. Yi Fan, who was leaning against the stone wall, laughed strangely. As he laughed, he walked towards Akatsuki again. Seeing Yi Fan's evil aura and his lustful eyes, Akatsuki picked up the ladle and scooped a big ladle of ice water from the basin. She splashed it on Yi Fan. Splash! Akatsuki was very accurate and the entire ladle of ice water splashed on Yi Fan's handsome face. After being stimulated by the cold water, Yi Fan, who was indulging in the evil aura, suddenly woke up. He shook his head and looked at Yuehongji with a dumbfounded expression. At this time, his eyes were clear and his evil aura was gone. He was back to normal. Hongji? Yi Fan wiped his face and asked with a frown. He knew nothing about what had just happened. Seeing that Yi Fan had recovered, Akatsuki heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Fan had finally recovered. Clang! The ladle in her hand fell to the ground again. What just happened? Chapter 983. An hour later, Yi Fan and Akatsuki sat across from each other at the stone table. I am a beast. After listening to Akatsuki's story, Yi Fan lowered his head and buried his fingers into his silver hair as he spoke with a vexed expression. He never thought that the extreme power of desire in the desire demon pool would turn him into a lecher. What did you experience in the demon realm? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan closed his eyes and told Akatsuki about entering the 4 great demonic pools and gathering the power of the 5 great demonic pools. After hearing this, Akatsuki was shocked and couldn't recover for a long time. Yi Fan didn't come to the demon realm to deal with any matters. Instead, he risked his life in search of power. In order to obtain the extreme power of desire in the desire demon pool, he even had a relationship with Yuji. In order to quell his lust, he also had sex with his demon monarch wife, Yuji. The reason why he touched her just now was because of the extreme power of desire in his body. Akatsuki looked at Yi Fan with mixed feelings in her heart. I'm sorry, Hongji. I'm sorry. Yi Fan tore at his hair and fell into deep self-blame. If Akatsuki hadn't splashed cold water on him, Akatsuki would have already been. What happened just now wasn't your intention. I don't blame you. Seeing Yi Fan in pain and self-blame, Akatsuki couldn't bear it. She held Yi Fan's hands in hers and comforted him. Hearing Akatsuki's words, Yi Fan's heart was torn even more. No matter what he did wrong, Akatsuki would never blame him. She would always consider things from his point of view. This made him feel even more pain. Hongji. Yi Fan held Akatsuki's hand tightly, unable to say a word. All right, it's all in the past now. Don't think about it anymore. Akatsuki gently patted Yi Fan's hand and comforted him softly. Now that things had come to this, she could do nothing but comfort Yi Fan. After a simple dinner, the two of them returned to their respective rooms, each with their own thoughts. After returning to the room, Yi Fan sat on the bed dejectedly, feeling depressed. Akatsuki leaned against the stone door, tears glistening in her eyes. Fujiwara no Chiko, Devil Chi Yuji, and Devil Queen Yumoji. In the blink of an eye, the number of women who had intimate relations with Yi Fan had increased to 3. As for her, Akatsuki, she had to leave silently after Yi Fan obtained the 9th divine cauldron. This was probably his fate. Akatsuki thought in her heart. She slowly walked to the bedside and slowly opened the golden scroll that the crown prince had given her before he left. When the painting on the scroll was completely presented in front of her, Akatsuki's heart skipped a beat. On the scroll, there was a woman in red standing quietly. This woman's eyebrows were as black as ink, her eyes were like autumn waves, her face was like peach petals, and her skin was like cream. She was truly like Chang-Yi leaving the palace, a fairy from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal world. The person in the painting was none other than Akatsuki. On the side of the painting there were 4 lines of poetry. Enter my yearning sect and know my bitterness of yearning. Long yearning brings back memories, short yearning endlessly. On the side of the poem there was a red royal seal. And this royal seal was the seal of the emperor. The beauty was alive, the handwriting was elegant, the poem was endless, and the royal seal was red. The painting of the beauty that came from the hands of the crown prince of the great Ming dynasty was filled with yearning. Akatsuki slowly rolled up the painting and put it aside. Her tears fell silently. If she had not met Yi Fan, she might have been moved by the crown prince's deep feelings. But at this time, her heart could not hold anyone other than Yi Fan. Enter my yearning sect and know my bitterness of yearning. Long yearning brings back memories, short yearning endlessly. These 4 lines of poetry were the portrayal of her life. Because in the near future, she would leave Yi Fan forever and never see him again. At that time, other than yearning, there was only yearning. The night passed quickly. The next morning, Akatsuki woke up early as usual and prepared breakfast. She pretended as if nothing had happened. With a smile on her face, she prepared food for Baihu and fruits for Fire Kirin. There was not much time left for her to spend with Yi Fan. She had to cherish this time. Seeing Akatsuki's smile, Yi Fan's mood improved a lot. Whoosh, just as the two were sitting at the stone table and quietly eating breakfast, a black smoke appeared in front of them. After the black smoke dissipated, Zhang Gong, dressed in a white jade robe, appeared. Greetings, teacher. Zhang Gong bowed to Yi Fan and said, You've finished with the disaster relief? Why are you alone? Where's Wide? Seeing Zhang Gong appear alone, Yi Fan immediately asked with a frown. Replying to teacher, Wide is currently in the middle of disaster relief. Zhang Gong said with a troubled expression. What happened? Yi Fan asked Zhang Gong. Zhang Gong's expression told him that something had happened. Teacher, the 30,000 taels of gold you gave us are about to be spent. Zhang Gong lowered his head and whispered. What? About to be spent? Zhang Gong's words surprised Yi Fan. 30,000 taels of gold was equivalent to 300,000 taels of silver. In less than a day, it was almost spent. What's the matter? Yi Fan frowned and asked Zhang Gong. Teacher, there are too many disaster victims. Zhang Gong raised his head and replied. Wide and I followed teacher's instructions to buy food, set up porridge stalls, and provide relief to the disaster victims. We also prepared a large number of medicinal herbs and distributed them to the sick disaster victims. But Zhang Gong wanted to say something but stopped. But what? Yi Fan asked. In the beginning, everything went smoothly, but when the news of the porridge distribution spread, disaster victims from other areas all flocked to the 2 provinces. The local grain and medicinal herb shops all began to raise the price and hoard the good. In addition, there were people who falsely claimed the disaster food. Zhang Gong's voice became softer and softer. But, after listening to Zhang Gong, Yi Fan slammed the stone cup in his hand onto the stone table. The fragrant tea in the cup immediately overflowed. There were actually people who profited from the disaster. Yi Fan narrowed his eyes and said angrily in his heart. Seeing that Yi Fan was angry, Zhang Gong immediately lowered his head and did not even dare to breathe loudly. How many taels of silver do we have left? Yi Fan asked Zhang Gong. We only have 30,000 taels of silver left, in addition to 500,000 caddies of rations and 2,000 caddies of medicinal herbs, Zhang Gong replied in a trembling voice. How many disaster victims are there in the 2 provinces? Yi Fan continued asking. There are 700,000 to 800,000 disaster victims in the 2 provinces, and the number is still increasing, Zhang Gong replied. What about the local authorities? Do they not care about these disaster victims? Yi Fan continued asking. The governor of the two provinces, Chen has already been removed from his post by the imperial court and is being held in custody in the capital. The local authorities are all making excuses, saying that they are short of silver and are waiting for the imperial court to distribute the relief funds. Zhang Gong raised his head and said, "Did the surrounding provinces not send reinforcements to the two provinces?" Yi Fan asked again. Not only did the surrounding provinces not send reinforcements to the two provinces, they even sent soldiers to guard the main roads to prevent the disaster victims from flooding in. Zhang Gong replied softly. "Those bunch of corrupt officials." Pa. As Yi Fan said that, he slammed the stone table heavily. Zhang Gong trembled and lowered his head. Yu Hongji furrowed her brows and remained silent. Disaster relief sounded like a simple matter, but once it was implemented, problems followed one after another. "Go and help Wide maintain order." "I'll be there shortly," Yi Fan said to Zhang Gong. "Yes, yes." Zhang Gong bowed deeply to Yi Fan, then turned into black smoke and dissipated. "What do you plan to do?" After Zhang Gong left, Akatsuki frowned and asked Yi Fan. "Kill one as an example to the rest." Yi Fan narrowed his eyes and said, at this moment, countless disaster victims were gathered together on the main streets of the two provinces. They were staring at the rice mountain, the face mountain, and the large amount of medicinal herbs that were piled together. In front of the rice mountain, Wide, who was dressed in an azure robe and dressed as a general, had his arms crossed as he stared expressionlessly at the large number of disaster victims in front of him. His eyes were as sharp as knives. In the open space in front of him, more than a dozen burly men were rolling on the ground, howling. "Why aren't you releasing the food? Why are you hurting the disaster victims?" Among the disaster victims, a middle-aged man walked out of the crowd and asked Wide angrily. "There's not much food left now. Other than the old, young, sick, and disabled, the rest of the people have been temporarily suspended," the burly Wide said. "These guys really ate bear hearts and leopard gut. They actually dared to steal the food. If it weren't for my master forbidding me from killing at will, they would have been dead long ago. There are so many of us. You're just one person. How many can you block?" Someone in the crowd shouted loudly. After the shout, the disaster victims began to become restless. Although the other party was powerful, he was only one person after all. There were countless disaster victims. If they swarmed together, no one would be able to stop them. "If one comes, I'll block one. If two come, I'll block both." Wide narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Since he won't give it to us, then we'll rob him." The middle-aged man turned around and shouted to the disaster victims behind him, "Fellow villagers, let's go." After the middle-aged man raised his arms and shouted, the hungry disaster victims suddenly lost their minds. As the saying goes, the grain knows the etiquette. When people were hungry to a certain extent, they could do anything. In an instant, the crowd rushed toward Wide like a tide. Wide frowned and secretly summoned the pure Een spirit, preparing to use his spiritual power to resist the crazy disaster victims. In the face of so many disaster victims, he was not confident that he could protect the food and medicinal herbs. The reason was very simple. He could not hurt the disaster victims. Whoosh, driven by hunger, the crowd rushed toward him like crazy. Whoosh, just when the disaster victims who had lost their minds rushed to less than 10 feet away from Wide, a silver starlight suddenly fell from the sky. Boom! In the starlight, Yi Fan's feet stomped heavily on the ground. Boom! The ground shook and a shock wave erupted. The shock wave from the explosion sent the madly rushing disaster victims back dozens of feet. The disaster victims all fell to the ground like waves in the sea. Yi Fan slowly stood up and looked around at the wailing disaster victims with a cold gaze. Whoosh! Akatsuki, dressed in red, slowly descended from the sky and landed beside Yi Fan. "Wide greets Mr. Chapter 984. Stand up and speak. Yi Fan looked around at the disaster victims who had fallen to the ground and spoke to Wide. "Thank you, sir." Wide stood up. Whoosh! At this moment, Zhang Gong, dressed in a white jade robe, appeared next to Wide out of thin air. Although he left the Lingyun cave earlier than Yi Fan, in terms of movement techniques, he could not compare to Yi Fan. "Sir," Wide did not do his job well. After Wide stood up, he was about to explain the situation to Yi Fan. Yi Fan waved his hand, indicating that Wide did not need to continue. "I heard about the situation here from Zhang Gong," Yi Fan said expressionlessly. "You two are not to blame for this." Thank you, sir." Seeing Yi Fan's cold expression, Wide spoke in a trembling voice. As he spoke, he turned his head to look at Zhang Gong with a frown. The evil spirit aura emanating from Yi Fan's body made him feel very uneasy. Both of them were already ghost mighty cultivators, so they were very sensitive to evil spirit aura. Zhang Gong shook his head at Wide, meaning that he also did not know what the evil spirit aura on Yi Fan's body was. Who are you?" Among the disaster victims, the middle-aged man who was the leader of the troublemakers staggered up from the ground and asked Yi Fan with a grimace. "I am the owner of these food and medicine." Yi Fan stood with his hands behind his back, looked at the middle-aged man, and said calmly, "Since this is disaster relief, why did you stop giving out food?" The middle-aged man asked Yi Fan. "These are my things. If I want to give them away, I will give them away. If I don't want to give them away, I will not give them away. Why can't I?" Yi Fan asked the middle-aged man. Yi Fan's words caused Akatsuki, who was standing behind him, to frown. At this time, Yi Fan had already started to become evil. It was the evil energy of the evil demon pool, Akatsuki thought. Hearing Yi Fan's question, the middle-aged man was stumped and couldn't say a word for a long time. "Young hero, the commoners are now starving and suffering unspeakably. Since young hero wants to do a good deed, please open the barn and release the food. The commoners will definitely remember your kindness." In the crowd, an old man holding a bamboo cane staggered out and said to Yi Fan. The old man's clothes were ragged and he was as thin as a match. He only had a few teeth left in his mouth. "Sure, but there must be rules. Otherwise, I won't give you a single grain." Yi Fan looked around at the disaster victims and said coldly, What rules?" The middle-aged man asked hesitantly. He wasn't stupid. He knew that this silver-haired guy in front of him was definitely not an ordinary person. There was an 80 to 90% chance that this guy practiced Dao technique. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such an astonishing aura. "Line up first," Yi Fan said expressionlessly. The old, weak, sick, and disabled are in one line, orphans and widows are in another line, and the young and strong are in another line. The crowd began to become restless. "When you line up, you will release the food," Yi Fan continued. As soon as Yi Fan's voice fell, the disaster victims began to line up obediently. In a short while, thousands of disaster victims were lined up in 3 columns. The line was dozens of miles long and stretched as far as the eye could see. The old, weak, sick, and disabled, orphans and widows, everyone will have 2 portions of food and 1 portion of medicinal herbs, Yi Fan said in a clear voice. The young and strong will have 1 portion of food and no medicinal herbs. Yi Fan's words were activated with spirit energy. Although his voice wasn't loud, it was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. "Before releasing the food, I want to announce a few rules," Yi Fan continued. "As far as I know, among you disaster victims, there are many people who want to make up the numbers. They clearly aren't disaster victims, but they want to blend in with the disaster victims and falsely claim food. I'll say the ugly words first. If I find out that someone is falsely claiming food, then don't blame me for being ruthless." The crowd was silent, quietly listening. They were well aware of the situation that Yi Fan was talking about. There were indeed many people who mixed in with the disaster victims and falsely claimed food. Also, some people are carrying children that aren't their own. If I find out that they are human traffickers, I will kill them without mercy, Yi Fan said coldly. On the way back to the Lingyun cave with the little girl, Yi Fan learned of this situation from her. Many orphans would be taken away by passers-by. Among these people, 8 or 9 out of 10 were human traffickers. There were even some who used these orphans as rations. The disaster victims whispered to each other. Those who falsely claim food, leave now. Those who are human traffickers, immediately put down the children in your arms and get lost, Yi Fan continued. In the crowd, no one left. Seeing this situation, Yi Fan sneered. They wouldn't turn back until they hit the wall, and they wouldn't cry until they saw the coffin. This was the kind of people they were talking about. It seemed that if he didn't kill a few of them, these people wouldn't show up at all. Release the food. The corners of Yi Fan's mouth curled up, and he gave the order to release the food. With the order, the few of them began to get busy. Zhang Gong distributed corn, Wide distributed wheat flour, and Akatsuki distributed medicinal herbs. Yi Fan, on the other hand, had his hands behind his back and paced around, scanning the disaster victims who came to receive food one by one. The crowd began to move forward slowly. You, stop right there. After a while, Yi Fan called out to a middle-aged woman. The middle-aged woman was in her 30s, and she was holding the hand of a 5-year-old girl. Young hero, you called me. When the middle-aged woman saw Yi Fan calling out to her, she immediately stuttered. Is this your child? Yi Fan stared at the middle-aged woman and asked coldly. Yes. The middle-aged woman's eyes flashed with a hint of panic as she said nervously. Are you sure? Yi Fan narrowed his eyes and asked with a half-smile. My child, Of course I'm sure, the woman said, pretending to be calm. Is she your biological child? Yi Fan asked again. Yes. The woman avoided Yi Fan's gaze and answered. You're lying. Yi Fan's eyes widened as he shouted. He had entered the blood demon pool and possessed the heavenly demon eye. In terms of understanding of blood, if he claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. However, the mother and daughter in front of him did not have the slightest bit of similarity in the blood flowing in their bodies. In other words, they were not mother and daughter at all. I didn't. The middle-aged woman quibbled. How dare you quibble? Smack. Yi Fan's 5 fingers curled into claws and locked onto the woman's neck. He gently exerted strength in his hand and lifted the woman up. The woman's legs flailed as she tried to pry off Yi Fan's hand with all her might. However, how much strength did she have? How could she possibly pry off Yi Fan's hand? Wah! The little girl standing by the side suddenly burst into tears. Yi Fan, stop it! After hearing the little girl's cries, Akatsuki immediately rushed over. She knew that Yi Fan's evil aura was starting to act up. If it were in the past, he would not lay his hands on women. Put her down quickly, otherwise she'll lose her life. After arriving in front of Yi Fan, Akatsuki said anxiously as she pulled on Yi Fan's hand. Yi Fan looked at the anxious Akatsuki and then looked at the middle-aged woman in his hand who was rolling her eyes. Then, he released his grip. The middle-aged woman immediately fell to the ground, gasping for air. Akatsuki picked up the crying little girl and asked Yi Fan anxiously, What happened? She's a human trafficker. This child isn't hers at all, Yi Fan said coldly as he stared at the middle-aged woman. How do you know? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. The blood in their bodies is not related at all. How can they be mother and daughter? Yi Fan answered Akatsuki. Akatsuki turned to look at the middle-aged woman with a complicated expression. You'd better explain the situation clearly. Otherwise, I won't be able to help you, Akatsuki said to the middle-aged woman. I admit that this child isn't my biological child. She's my adopted daughter, the woman who had caught her breath said. Adopted daughter? Akatsuki frowned. If that was the case, then this matter would be difficult to handle. Of course, the blood of an adopted daughter wouldn't be related. Little girl, is she your mother? Akatsuki asked the little girl in her arms. The little girl looked at Akatsuki with tears in her eyes. She didn't react at all. This child is deaf and mute, Yifan said. If she wasn't deaf and mute, he would have used this method already. What should she do? Akatsuki looked at Yifan. There was nothing she could do. I'll ask you again. Is what you said true? Yifan asked the middle-aged woman again. Young hero, what I said just now is the truth, the middle-aged woman said solemnly. What if it's fake? Yifan pressed. If it's fake, then I'm at your mercy, the middle-aged woman replied. Yifan didn't say anything after hearing that. He reached out his right hand and held the little girl's hand in his. What are you doing? Akatsuki asked Yifan. Yifan's evil aura was rising. She was worried that Yifan would scare the little girl. Won't everything be clear once I cure this child of her deafness? Yifan said as he activated his heavenly demon power. At the same time, he looked at the middle-aged woman. His words made the middle-aged woman's body tremble. Her expression changed. Seeing the middle-aged woman's panicked expression, Yifan's lips curled into a sinister smile. Good idea. Akatsuki was enlightened. How could she have forgotten about that? Buzz, as the red light in Yifan's hand intensified, two slender red lights traveled up the little girl's wrist and entered her mouth and ears. In an instant, the little girl's deafness was completely cured by Yifan's heavenly demon power. That's enough, Yifan said as he retracted the red lights. At this moment, the little girl was stunned. Then, her face was filled with shock and joy. She heard voices. Little girl, you can hear voices? Akatsuki asked the little girl. The little girl looked at Akatsuki with a puzzled expression. She had been deaf-mute since young and had never heard anyone speak. Since she couldn't hear anyone speak, she naturally couldn't understand language. Seeing this, Yifan frowned. He didn't expect this little girl to be born deaf-mute. Seeing that the little girl couldn't speak, the middle-aged woman heaved a sigh of relief. That was close. Chapter 985. Give me the child. After seeing the middle-aged woman's relieved expression, Yifan turned his head and said to Akatsuki. Yu Hongji confusedly handed the little girl in her arms to him. Yifan placed the little girl on the ground and looked at her quietly. The little girl blinked her eyes and looked up at Yifan with her clear and transparent eyes. Lend me your battle blade, Yifan said as he grabbed the handle of the battle blade in Akatsuki's hand and pulled the phoenix wing battle blade out of its scabbard. Swish, after the phoenix wing battle blade was unsheathed, Yifan, with his evil aura rising, placed the blade directly on the little girl's neck. The scene in front of her shocked Akatsuki, and her pupils constricted. Wah! Seeing Yifan place the blade on her neck, the little girl, who had just stopped crying, burst into tears again. Yifan, what are you doing? Akatsuki asked anxiously. This child is the reincarnation of the god of plagues. I have to kill her. Yifan narrowed his eyes and said. As he said that, he glanced at the middle-aged woman. The middle-aged woman was shocked and didn't recover for a long time. You're crazy. She's just a child. How can she be the reincarnation of the god of plagues? Akatsuki snatched the phoenix wing battle blade from Yifan's hand and said loudly. Yifan didn't answer Akatsuki. Instead, he turned his head and looked at the middle-aged woman with an evil smile on his face. The middle-aged woman was completely confused by Yifan's evil smile. She didn't know what Yifan was up to. Bang! Yifan lifted his leg and kicked the middle-aged woman. The middle-aged woman didn't understand what had happened and her body flew backward. Crack! As she flew backward, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Bang! The middle-aged woman fell 3 feet away. She painfully clutched her stomach and rolled back and forth on the ground, unable to get up for a long time. Seeing this situation, Akatsuki immediately sheathed the phoenix wing saber in her hand, then quickly walked to the middle-aged woman's side and helped her up. The middle-aged woman turned pale and spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked at Yi Fan in confusion. Yi Fan's kick had broken 3 of her ribs. "Yi Fan, what are you doing?" Akatsuki, who was supporting the middle-aged woman, questioned Yi Fan loudly. One moment, he wanted to kill the little girl, saying that she was the reincarnation of the god of plagues. The next moment, he directly attacked the middle-aged woman, breaking her ribs. What was this guy trying to do? This child is not her adopted daughter at all. Yi Fan carried the bawling little girl in his arms and slowly walked towards the middle-aged woman as he spoke. "How do you know?" Akatsuki asked Yi Fan angrily. "The reason why I said that this child was the reincarnation of the god of plagues and wanted to kill her on the spot was to see her reaction," Yi Fan explained as he handed the little girl in his arms to Akatsuki. "See her reaction?" Akatsuki took the little girl and asked in confusion. Her adopted daughter was said to be the reincarnation of the god of plagues and was about to be killed. As a foster mother, she should love her child and try her best to save her child. But she, Yi Fan stared at the middle-aged woman and said, was indifferent. There was not even a trace of affection in her eyes. How could such a person be the child's mother? After listening to Yi Fan's explanation, Akatsuki suddenly understood. Yi Fan had just been testing the middle-aged woman's familial feelings. Only then did Akatsuki remember that when Yi Fan pretended to kill the little girl, the middle-aged woman did not have any reaction, nor did she show any love for her daughter. Yi Fan was right. This woman was not the little girl's adoptive mother, but a human trafficker. Thinking of this, Akatsuki immediately let go of the middle-aged woman. "What do you have to say now?" Yi Fan narrowed his eyes and asked the middle-aged woman with a murderous look. Young hero, I was wrong, I was really wrong. Please be magnanimous and forgive me this time." The middle-aged woman fell to her knees in front of Yi Fan and hugged Yi Fan's thigh as she begged. What, not stubborn anymore? Yi Fan looked down at the middle-aged woman and asked with a strange smile. "Forgive me, young hero," the middle-aged woman cried bitterly. "I won't do it again. There won't be a next time." As Yi Fan spoke, he raised both his hands. He covered the eyes of the little girl in Akatsuki's arms with one hand and waved his other hand at the middle-aged woman kneeling in front of him. Bang! With a muffled sound, the middle-aged woman's head flew up into the air. A column of blood as thick as a bowl shot out from the wound, reaching several feet high. Gurgle, gurgle, the middle-aged woman's head fell to the ground in a bloody mess. Thump! The corpse fell heavily to the ground, and her bright red blood instantly stained the ground. Akatsuki frowned and covered the little girl with her sleeve, then turned her head and turned around. The bloody scene in front of them caused the crowd to retreat quickly. I'll say it again. If you're a human trafficker, put down the child in your arms and get out of here. Otherwise, you'll end up like this bastard. Yi Fan looked around at the disaster victims and said loudly. His face was covered in the middle-aged woman's blood. Coupled with the rising evil aura and murderous look in his eyes, he looked like a demon that had crawled out of hell. There was a commotion in the crowd. After the commotion, hundreds of men and women put down the boys and girls in their arms and filed out of the crowd. They knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Yi Fan, not even daring to breathe loudly. "If you do such heartless things again, I'll make sure you die without a complete corpse. Get out!" Yi Fan shouted angrily. Yi Fan's words of "get out" made the human traffickers feel as if they had been granted amnesty. They scrambled to escape. "Continue." Yi Fan took out a handkerchief from his bosom and wiped the blood off his face as he spoke calmly. The feeding and application of medicine continued. The disaster victims slowly moved again. Yi Fan paced around and continued to inspect the crowd. His gaze was cold as he scanned everyone's faces. Akatsuki looked at Yi Fan from time to time as she applied the medicine. Although this guy was surrounded by evil aura and did not do things according to common sense, the effect was excellent. She could not help but be convinced. You stop right there. At the front of the crowd, a middle-aged man attracted Yi Fan's attention. This man looked very strong, but there was a very special smell on him. To be specific, it was a kind of meat fragrance. When he smelled this meat fragrance, Yi Fan immediately frowned and called out to the middle-aged man. Young hero, you called me. The middle-aged man stopped and looked nervously at Yi Fan. After what happened just now, the disaster victims were extremely afraid of this silver-haired, ruthless young man. Come out, Yi Fan said expressionlessly. The middle-aged man was stunned at first, then he walked out of the crowd and came in front of Yi Fan. Yi Fan narrowed his eyes and looked up at the middle-aged man's head. Yi Fan's action caused the middle-aged man to instinctively raise his head and look above him. Above him there was nothing. Stand here and don't move, Yi Fan said as he turned around and came in front of the two ghosts. Sir. Seeing Yi Fan come in front of them, the two ghosts said respectfully. There's something I need the two of you to do right now. Yi Fan put his head in front of the two ghosts and whispered a few words in their ears. Yes sir, we'll do it right away, Zhang Gong said as he and Wide turned around and walked toward the disaster victims. What did you tell them to do? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. You'll know in a moment, Yi Fan said to Akatsuki as he distributed food to the disaster victims. You come out, you and you come out, Zhang Gong and Wide shuttled back and forth among the disaster victims as they spoke. The people who were called out walked out of the disaster victims and stood to the side. In less than half an incense's time, several hundred people were selected by the two ghosts from the disaster victims. They stood in a line, their faces full of confusion. Sir, we've done everything you asked us to do. The two ghosts came in front of Yi Fan and said respectfully. Yi Fan responded and walked slowly in front of these people. Akatsuki followed closely behind. She wanted to know what Yi Fan was up to. Hongji, do you know what they've done? Yi Fan turned around and asked Akatsuki. Akatsuki looked carefully at the hundreds of people in the line, then looked at Yi Fan and slowly shook her head. In her opinion, these people were no different from the other disaster victims, except for the special smell on their bodies. The smell on their bodies, do you smell it? Yi Fan asked Akatsuki. I smell it, it's a very special smell of meat, Akatsuki replied. Do you know what kind of meat it is? Yi Fan asked again. Akatsuki shook her head again. Although she was a cooking expert, she had never smelled this kind of smell. It's human meat, Yi Fan replied. What? Human meat? Akatsuki said in shock. To be exact, it's children's meat. Yi Fan frowned and said in a low voice. Children, Akatsuki's voice was trembling. Have you heard of cannibalism? Yi Fan asked Akatsuki. Cannibalism, Akatsuki muttered to herself. It's using one's own child to exchange for someone else's child, and then cooking and eating it, Yi Fan said with a heavy expression. You don't say any more, Akatsuki's face was pale and bloodless. The strange smell coming from these people is the smell of human meat, Yi Fan continued. Blurg, Akatsuki covered her mouth with her hand, feeling slightly nauseous. She couldn't imagine that there could be such a tragic and unethical thing in the world. How do you know that they're eating children? Akatsuki tried to calm her nauseous stomach and asked Yi Fan. Come and see. As Yi Fan spoke, he waved his sleeve at the hundreds of people. Buzz, after a flash of red light, the scene in front of them changed drastically. Above the hundreds of people, there were gloomy clouds and gloomy winds. Chapter 986. Ghost. When they saw the countless infant spirits above their heads, all the disaster victims present instantly felt their hair stand on end and were in a panic. The disaster victims who had been in an orderly formation just now suddenly became chaotic. The hundreds of men and women directly below the infant spirits changed their expressions and were shocked. These are, Akatsuki asked Yifan in shock. These are the babies that they ate, Yifan replied. As children, they were eaten by their biological parents. Naturally, the infant spirits will not disperse and will not disappear. These beasts are simply not human. After hearing Yifan's words, Akatsuki glared at the crowd and said in grief and indignation, "As the saying goes, even a vicious tiger would not eat its own cubs. And these people were worse than beasts. They are even willing to let their own children be eaten by others. They are not worthy of being a father or a mother." Yifan narrowed his eyes at the hundreds of people who were shocked and said coldly, "These beasts are not worthy of living in this world." Whoosh, as Yifan spoke, his 5 fingers bent into a claw and sucked in the air at the hundreds of men and women who were eating each other's children. Whoosh, in an instant, a chilly wind blew. Whoosh, 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 in the gusts of chilly wind, countless translucent human-shaped objects whizzed out from the bodies of these heartless men and women. They were souls. Yifan directly took away the souls of these people. Akatsuki's beautiful eyes widened and she was shocked in her heart. There was no need to guess. Yifan had used the power of the pool of dead demons. Whoosh, 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 the hundreds of souls turned into countless colorful lights and flew directly into Yifan's palm. In the blink of an eye, a dazzling ball of light the size of a fist appeared in Yifan's palm out of thin air. The ball of light was colorful and shone brightly. It spun in Yifan's palm and was very beautiful. Hundreds of true souls were already in his hands. Thump, thump, thump. Once their souls were lost, the hundreds of people instantly fell to the ground and died. Looking at the hundreds of corpses in front of him, Akatsuki couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. Compared to before, Yifan's killing techniques were becoming simpler and simpler, and they were becoming more and more terrifying. When he killed the 5,000 mountain bandits, he used the juicy flying dagger and used the time it took to brew a cup of tea. If it was now, it would only take a moment to kill them all. Now, he looked at Yifan again. He held the 5-colored ball of light formed from hundreds of true souls in his palm, and then slowly closed his fingers. Buzz, countless rays of resplendent light shot out from between his fingers. As Yifan's 5 fingers gradually tightened, the 5-colored ball of light let out a miserable wail. The corners of Yifan's mouth curled up as he continued to exert force. As the saying goes, one must eliminate all evil by cutting the weeds and pulling up the roots. Such a heartless person had no right to enter the cycle of reincarnation. The wails became even more miserable. Akatsuki closed her eyes, unable to bear to look at it. Yifan wanted to destroy their primordial spirits. Once their primordial spirits were destroyed, their souls would disperse and completely disappear from this world. Yifan had completely deprived them of the right to reincarnate. Whoosh! The moment Akatsuki closed her eyes, Yifan's 5 fingers instantly clenched into a fist. Bang! The 5-colored ball of light exploded in an instant, turning into specks of light and scattering. Even death can't wipe out their crimes. Yifan clapped his hands and said with a cold smile. All the disaster victims instantly became silent. Their legs trembled and their bodies trembled. Some were even so frightened that they wet their pants. Where did this young man come from? He looked so handsome, but his attacks were so vicious. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of living people became a pile of corpses. What kind of means was this? I've avenged you. Go to the netherworld and be reincarnated. Don't wander around the human world anymore. Yifan looked up at the baby spirits and said calmly. The baby spirits floating in the air bowed to Yifan in unison. Then, they turned into gusts of cold wind and disappeared into thin air. Continue. Yifan tilted his head and said to Zhang Gong and Wide. Yes. The two ghosts answered in unison. They continued to distribute the food and apply the medicine. This time, all the disaster victims became well-behaved. Even the middle-aged man who led the trouble just now had his tail between his legs. He didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Yifan glanced at the crowd and didn't find any clues. Then, he came to Akatsuki's side. "I wronged you just now." Akatsuki looked up and said to Yifan. "You can't blame the ignorant," Yifan said calmly as he helped Akatsuki carry the medicinal herbs. Akatsuki pursed her lips and didn't speak. "This food is not enough. Can only last for 2 hours at most. Moreover, the disaster victims don't have water." Yifan moved the medicinal herbs to Akatsuki and said, "I'll go up and make some rain first. Then, I'll find a way to get some food. You and the two ghosts stay here and don't go anywhere." "Okay." Akatsuki nodded in response. Yifan patted the dust off his hand. Then, with a thought, he disappeared in an instant. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Yifan's figure appeared out of thin air above the clouds. At this time, looking down from the clouds, the disaster victims had stretched for dozens of miles. It seemed that there were at least 700,000 to 800,000 people. If the water problem was not solved, even if there was food, it would be useless. Yifan thought to himself and stretched out one hand toward the void. Wang, as a dazzling silver light flashed by, the frost dragon sword appeared in Yifan's hand out of thin air, surrounded by a cold aura. Whoosh! With the frost dragon sword in hand, Yifan suddenly raised the huge auspicious clouds under his feet by several thousand feet. Then, he quickly swung it downward. A huge arc of cold air that was several thousand feet long and as thick as a bowl shot out from the frost dragon's sword. Crack, crack, crack. Crack, crack, crack. Wherever the arc of cold air passed, a huge ice wall that was several thousand feet long, several hundred feet wide, and several hundred feet thick appeared out of thin air. The ice wall was sparkling and translucent. Under the illumination of the sun, it sparkled and sparkled. It was an extremely spectacular sight. Whoosh! After the ice wall appeared, it instantly whistled downward. Wang Yifan thought of something, and the Li fire sword, which was shining with a red light and rising heat, appeared in his other hand out of nowhere. Wang Yifan activated the Li fire sword and swung it at the gigantic ice wall that was whistling through the air. Whoosh! A fiery light whip that was several thousand feet long shot out from the fleeting flame sword toward the ice wall. He wanted to use the heat from the fleeting flame sword to melt the ice wall and turn it into clear water. The fiery light whip was extremely fast. In an instant it hit the huge ice wall. Boom! After a loud bang, the huge ice wall that was several thousand feet long, several hundred feet wide, and several hundred feet thick exploded and turned into ice shards. During the process of falling, the ice shards rubbed against the air and turned into water droplets. "It's raining! It's raining!" When the chilly water droplets fell from the sky, someone in the crowd suddenly yelled out, "Stop it! It's raining! We have water now! The heavens are watching! The heavens are watching!" The crowd was in a jubilant mood. What they didn't know was that the ice rain was specially made for them by Yifan in the clouds. Akatsuki raised her head and shaded her eyes with her hands as she looked up into the sky. She saw that in the sky, there was a silver mist and ice smoke. Loud sounds kept coming. The black-robed and silver-haired Yifan was standing on the huge auspicious clouds. He held the frost dragon in one hand and the fleeting flame sword in the other. He was condensing the ice wall and melting the ice rain. He was using his own strength to rain hundreds of thousands of people. Looking at the ice wall and flames in the sky, listening to the rumbling sounds and seeing Yifan's focused expression, Akatsuki's eyes turned red. Yifan was still that Yifan. Even though he had entered the 5 great devil's pools, even though he was evil and filled with killing intent, he was still that kind-hearted Yifan who hated evil. This was something that he would never change. The Eldritch from 300 years ago might have been like this, righteous and evil at the same time, pure as the moon. Akatsuki thought to herself. Above the clouds, the silver-haired Yi Fan activated the auspicious clouds under his feet and quickly flew along the route of the disaster victims. Whoosh, whoosh. He used the frost dragon to condense the water in the air into a huge ice wall. He used the fleeting flame sword to shatter the huge ice wall and melt it into water droplets that filled the sky. In the blink of an eye, dozens of ice walls came whistling down and turned into ice rain. Looking at the jubilant disaster victims below, Yi Fan stopped using the auspicious clouds and let out a long sigh. After his random hacking, the disaster victims finally had water to drink and could eat. They no longer needed to chew on food. What he needed to do next was to gather food. Yi Fan thought to himself. His figure disappeared again in an instant. A moment later, Yi Fan's figure appeared out of thin air in front of a brothel 800 kilometers away. The reason he came here was not to have fun, but because he heard a conversation between a few people on the clouds. The people who were talking were none other than some local officials of the two provinces. At this time, they were drinking wine without restraint in the luxurious private room of this brothel. I say, Lord Zhao, Chen Aimin is being escorted to the capital by the imperial envoy. It won't affect us, right? At the table, a middle-aged man wearing a gorgeous official's robe asked an official sitting opposite him. The official called Lord Zhao was also wearing an official's robe. He had a fierce face, a pair of triangular eyes, and a goatee. At a glance, one could tell he was not a good person. Lord Li, don't worry, that Chen Aimin can't bite us, the goatee said with a smile. I've already reported to the Crown Prince that Chen Aimin deceived us, oppressed us local officials, and plundered the people's wealth. Our reports on the disaster situation were secretly confiscated by him, and the relief funds we raised were also pocketed by him. In this way, even if he jumped into the Yellow River, he won't be able to clear his name, ha ha ha. Good plan, Lord Zhao. In a moment, we'll also report to the Emperor and report Chen Aimin. Take someone's money and help them avoid disaster. This old fellow has taken so much of our money, it's time for him to help us avoid disaster. This time we can sit back and relax, ha ha ha. The other officials at the table were suddenly enlightened and laughed with joy. As the saying goes, everyone kicks a wall that is down, and 10,000 people beat a broken drum. Once the greedy leader fell, these traitorous officials could push all the blame onto the governor of the two provinces, Chen Aimin. Here comes the deal. After listening to the conversation of these officials, Yi Fan, who was standing at the entrance of the brothel, thought to himself. With these fat rats here, there was no need to worry about money, no need to worry about food. As Yi Fan thought to himself, his figure flashed and appeared outside the private room. He pushed the door open with one hand and stepped in. Who are you? Seeing Yi Fan push open the door and enter, the fierce-looking Lord Zhao immediately asked cautiously. He had instructed the brothel keeper that without his permission, no one was allowed to enter. Chapter 987. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the door of the private room opened. The silver-haired, black-robed Yi Fan walked out with a smile. At this time, his right hand was stained with a few traces of dark red blood. He turned around and closed the door. Then, he took a white towel from the towel rack at the door and wiped the blood on his hand. After wiping his hands, Yi Fan casually threw the towel away and disappeared into thin air. In the private room, 7 officials slumped in their chairs like mud. Their faces were pale and bloodless. They were sweating profusely and trembling like a sieve. Several of the officials were so scared that they peed their pants. The smelly urine kept flowing down their pants. Everyone shivered as they stared at the center of the table. In the center of the round table filled with sumptuous banquets, a bloody human head was placed on it. The eyes of the human head were wide open and bleeding from the 7 orifices. It was extremely terrifying. On the main armchair, a headless corpse was sitting upright. Black blood kept flowing out from the cavity. This person was none other than Lord Zhao, who had triangular eyes and a goatee. Quick! Go and prepare the silver, quick! One of the officials swallowed his saliva and then ran out of the private room. After his reminder, the other 6 officials also came to their senses. They forced their weak bodies to run out of the private room and left the brothel in a sorry state. After a while, the brothel owner's scream came from the brothel. Yi Fan left the brothel and went to several local influential grain and medicine shops. He visited the shopkeepers one by one. After getting a satisfactory answer, Yi Fan whistled and disappeared again. Whoosh! After a flash of golden light, Yi Fan appeared behind Misha out of thin air. He walked out with a smile and came to Akatsuki's side. At this time, the disaster victims were lining up in an orderly manner to get food. The 3 of them were also distributing rice, flour, and medicine in an orderly manner. Seeing Yi Fan walk out from behind Misha, Akatsuki felt a little incredulous. Didn't Yi Fan go to collect grain? Why are you back so soon? You have finished gathering grain? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. It's done. Yi Fan handed a small bag of medicinal herbs to one of the victims and replied with a smile. So fast. Akatsuki was in disbelief. It's already considered slow, Yi Fan said with a smile. How much food have we collected? Do you need Zhang Gong and Wide to help transport the grain? Akatsuki continued to ask. As for the quantity, I really don't know, Yi Fan said with a smile. But according to my guess, there should be at least a few million caddies. As for the food, there's no need at all. Someone will send it over in a while. A few million caddies? That much? Akatsuki's voice revealed a hint of surprise. Other than the grain, I also collected tens of millions of silver. Someone will send the banknotes over in a while, Yi Fan said without raising his head as he helped Akatsuki distribute the medicinal herbs. Tens of millions of silver? Where did you get so much money? Akatsuki was shocked again. I caught a nest of corrupt officials, extremely corrupt. Yi Fan looked up at Akatsuki and slyly raised his eyebrows. Akatsuki instantly understood. No wonder Yi Fan was able to collect so much money in such a short time. It turned out that he had robbed the nest of corrupt officials. This guy really has a way. There was no need to guess. Those corrupt officials must have been carefully entertained by Yi Fan. Otherwise, why would they be willing to pay so much blood? Akatsuki thought in her heart. Everything was as Yi Fan had said. In less than 4 hours, a large number of horse carriages appeared on the road in the distance. The horse carriages were filled with rice, flour, meat, fruits, and medicinal herbs. The convoy of grain was majestic. There were hundreds of horse carriages and one couldn't see the end of it. At the same time, 7 fast horses appeared from the other side of the road and galloped towards them. On the fast horses, a few officials wearing gorgeous official robes whipped their horses. They wished that they could grow a pair of wings and immediately appear in front of Yi Fan. Our money and grain is here. Looking at the majestic horse carriages and the 7 fast horses galloping towards them, Yi Fan patted the dust off his hands and said with a smile, "Oh my God!" Looking at the endless convoy of grain, Akatsuki muttered to herself. Giddy up, giddy up! Following the shouts of the horses, several horses galloped in front of Yi Fan like the wind. Nay, after seeing Yi Fan, the few officials immediately reined in their horses and hurriedly dismounted from their horses. 2 of the officials were in such a hurry that their official hats almost fell off their head. After dismounting, the few of them hurriedly tidied up their clothes and knelt in front of Yi Fan with a plop. At this time, they were sweating profusely and panting heavily. Their faces were streaked with black and white. They only used 4 hours to travel 800 miles. It was easy to imagine how tiring the journey was. Mr. Yi, the silver you asked for, "We have brought the silver," the fat official kneeling at the front said breathlessly to Yi Fan. Yi Fan told them to bring all the silver they could gather within 4 hours. Otherwise, they would end up like Sir Zhao. After hearing this, the few of them hurriedly returned home and exchanged all the stolen silver they had embezzled over the years for banknotes. Then, they rode on the horses used by the imperial court to deliver military intelligence, and rode the courier road as fast as they could to get here. "Where are the banknotes?" Yi Fan put his hands behind his back and narrowed his eyes at the 7 officials kneeling in front of him. It's here." The fat official took out a large stack of banknotes and raised it over his head with trembling hands. The other 6 officials also took out banknotes from their pockets and offered them with both hands. Yi Fan turned around and looked at Akatsuki. Akatsuki understood and took the banknotes from their hands and handed them to Yi Fan. "How much did you gather in total?" Yi Fan asked the officials. Mr. Yi, a total of 8 million silver," the fat official said with a trembling voice. "What? Only 8 million silver?" After hearing this, Yi Fan stared at the fat official and asked coldly. "Mr. Yi, I'm talking about gold," the fat official replied with a trembling voice. After listening to the fat official's explanation, Yi Fan finally calmed down. 8 million taels of gold, converted into silver, was a total of 80 million taels of silver. "Do you know what to do next?" Yi Fan glanced at the officials and asked. Yes, the officials wiped their sweat with their sleeves and said with a flattering smile. "Let's hear it," Yi Fan said with a smile. "In a while, we'll go back and sell our family property. We'll convert all the mansions, fields, and antiques we embezzled into cash to help the victims of the disaster," the fat official said with a trembling voice. "And then?" Yi Fan continued to ask. Then we'll submit a memorial to the imperial court, resign, and return home," the fat official answered hurriedly. "You're quite honest this time and didn't play any tricks with me." Yi Fan squatted down and reached out to pat the fat official's face. He said with a smile, "How about this? You don't have to resign. But from today onwards, you must be a clean official who serves the country and the people. If I find out that you've embezzled money and abused the law again, even if it's just a copper coin, I'll immediately remove your heads." As Yi Fan said this, he waved his sleeves at the huge stone lion on the side of the street. Boom! With a light wave of Yi Fan's hand, the huge stone lion, which weighed several thousand pounds, instantly cracked and turned into rubble. The rubble filled the sky and fell like rain. Mr. Yi, the officials wept bitterly and kowtowed non-stop. They couldn't say a word for a long time. Yi Fan's kindness and authority, as well as Yi Fan's shocking cultivation, convinced them wholeheartedly. "I'll give you these 8 million taels of gold today. Use this money to open canals and channel water, restore the livelihood of the people, and provide relief to the people." As Yi Fan spoke, he handed the banknotes in his hand to the fat official. "Mr. Yi, don't worry. When we go back this time, we'll definitely be good officials. If we embezzle money and abuse the law again, we'll definitely be struck by lightning and die without a complete corpse." The fat official took the banknotes with both hands and said with tears and snot running down his face. The other 6 officials also lowered their heads and wept, tears streaming down their faces. "When I come to Guangdong and Guangxi again, I hope to see the people here living and working in peace and contentment, and not eating each other's children." Yi Fan stood up and said to the officials, "You may leave." The officials respectfully kowtowed 3 times to Yi Fan, then got up and left. Good. The scene in front of them made the disaster victims clap and cheer for Yi Fan. For a moment, thunderous applause and cheers were like a tide. This silver-haired young man was indeed ruthless and merciless. He killed people without blinking, but he was deeply righteous and loved the people as if they were his own children. If there were more people like him in the world, then the common people would be blessed. At this time, even Akatsuki couldn't help clapping and cheering for Yi Fan. Yi Fan was Yi Fan after all. Everything was done properly by him. It was watertight. Arrange for the young and strong disaster victims to help unload the grain. Yi Fan turned around and said to Akatsuki, while everyone was busy unloading the grain, Yi Fan had a weed in his mouth and his hands were pillows. He lay down on the grain pile and looked at the sky. In a few days it would be the night of the full moon. It would be the day to cultivate the fourth layer of the proud moon heavenly chapter. He didn't know if the power of the 5 great magic pools and the power of the 2 ultimate techniques would be enough. Looking at the clouds in the sky, Yi Fan thought to himself, "What are you thinking about?" Akatsuki arrived in front of Yi Fan and asked with a smile. As she asked, she sat down beside Yi Fan and handed the water skin in her hand to Yi Fan. "I'm thinking about whether or not I can win that decisive battle," Yi Fan said. He sat up and took the water skin and drank a few mouthfuls. "You can definitely win," Akatsuki said to Yi Fan. Yi Fan smiled and didn't say anything. "Right, there is one thing that I don't understand," Akatsuki said to Yi Fan. "What is it?" Yi Fan put down the water skin and asked, "Why did you let those corrupt officials go? With your previous temper, you would have killed them." Akatsuki asked. "I also wanted to kill them. But have you thought about it? After killing them, the officials who replace them might be even more greedy. What would I do at that time? Then kill them?" Yi Fan turned his head and asked Akatsuki. Akatsuki frowned and looked pensive. After this lesson, they should be more restrained. Yi Fan continued, "Killing them is easy, but in the end, the ones who will suffer are the common people. In this way, it would be better to give them a chance to atone for their crimes. What do you think? Your thoughts are always different from others, but they are very effective." Chapter 988. The distribution of grain continued for an entire day. In the blink of an eye, it was night. At this time, the disaster victims had already received their grain and were setting fires on the streets to cook and rest. The entire street was as bright as day and the aroma of food assailed their nostrils. "After a busy day, you must be hungry, right? Come, let's eat." Yu Hongji tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and leaped onto the tall grain pile. She passed a bowl of fragrant rice porridge and 2 steaming white steamed buns to Yi Fan, who was looking up at the starry sky with his hands behind his head. This guy liked to look at the moon, so the moment the moon appeared, he obediently lay down on the grain pile and began to stare at it. "Have you eaten yet?" Yi Fan sat up and took the steamed buns as he asked Akatsuki. "I ate down below." Akatsuki sat down next to Yi Fan and said. Yi Fan nodded and began to eat the steamed buns as he drank the porridge. "As the sovereign of the demon world, it must be hard for you to eat this sort of thing," Akatsuki said to Yi Fan. "Unfortunately, there are no seasonings here, or else I would have made you a few side dishes to reward you. What's wrong with being a demon lord? Can't a demon lord eat steamed buns? HM?" Yi Fan chewed on a steamed bun as he smiled and asked Akatsuki. Akatsuki propped up her chin with one hand as she unblinkingly watched Yi Fan eat. Beneath her veil, she was smiling like a flower. The more she looked at Yi Fan's simple and honest personality, the more she liked him. "What are you smiling about?" Yi Fan slurped his porridge as he asked Akatsuki. The sovereign of the demon world is not enjoying a life of luxury in the demon palace, but instead eating steamed buns and eating porridge with the disaster victims. Akatsuki joked. Yi Fan chuckled at this and continued to eat his porridge. "By the way, how long are we going to stay here?" Akatsuki changed the topic and asked Yi Fan. Based on the Crown Prince's style of doing things, the disaster relief supplies from the court should arrive tomorrow. The officials I taught a lesson to should also open the granary tomorrow. Yi Fan took a bite of the steamed bun and said, "Tomorrow morning, I will have Zhang Gong and Wide continue to stand guard here and give out food and porridge. You come with me back to the Lingyun cave. Yes. Akatsuki nodded. What a fragrant porridge. Just as the two of them were talking, a clear male voice came from the sky and entered their ears. Akatsuki's expression changed. He immediately stood up and looked up at the sky. High up in the sky, a young man was standing on a cloud with his hands behind his back, looking at them with a smile. This person wore a green jade crown on his head, a black jade robe, a green jade belt around his waist, and a pair of cloud-treading boots. His face was like jade, and he was full of spirit and elegance. There were thousands of auspicious lights and thousands of auspicious clouds. What was strange was that although this person was surrounded by auspicious clouds, what he was standing on was not auspicious clouds, but a mass of dark clouds. Akatsuki frowned and tightened her grip on the phoenix wing saber in her hand. When Yifan taught her the cloud riding technique, he had told her that anyone who stepped on dark clouds was either a demon or a monster. They were definitely not good people. The dark clouds under this guy's feet were rolling. He was definitely not a good person. Hongji, don't misunderstand. He is not a demon. Yifan stood up from the grain pile with a smile on his face. He looked up at the young man in the clouds and said with a smile, "If he is not a demon, then who is he?" Akatsuki frowned and asked Yifan. "Ishuehan," Yifan replied. "Ishuehan? The gifted leader of the Tsing-E Society, Ishuehan?" Akatsuki asked in surprise. "That's right," Yifan replied. Akatsuki nodded slowly. Akatsuki had heard about Ishuehan's background. It was said that this person was born with a special ability. He could use his emotions to affect the local weather. Later, he met an immortal master who taught him magic and created a brilliant special ability sect, the Tsing-E Society. No wonder this person could step on dark clouds. Akatsuki thought in her heart. Whoosh! As the two were talking, Ishuehan suddenly disappeared from the clouds and appeared in front of them out of thin air. "Brother Yi, how have you been?" Ishuehan, who was surrounded by auspicious clouds, greeted Yifan with a smile. "Whether I've been well or not, can't Brother Yi tell?" Yifan showed the half-bun in his hand to Ishuehan and asked with a smile. "Ha ha! Brother Yi is still so free and unrestrained." Ishuehan laughed and said, "I've embarrassed myself in front of Brother Yi," Yifan said and turned to Akatsuki. "Hongji, this is the Mr. E I mentioned to you last time." "Mr. E," Akatsuki nodded to Ishuehan. "Miss you," Ishuehan replied politely. "Brother E, please take a seat." Yifan extended his hand and invited Ishuehan to sit. Ishuehan smiled, shook his green robe and sat on the grain pile. Like Yifan, Ishuehan was a free and unrestrained person. Yifan also sat down. The two of them were both keepers of the bell and were of similar age, so they naturally sympathized with each other. "Hongji, go and take care of the disaster victims first. I have something to discuss with Brother E," Yifan said to Akatsuki. The two of them were both keepers of the Nine Cauldrons bell, so some words were not to be leaked. If Akatsuki heard this, it would not be good for her. Yu Hongji understood tacitly and flew down from the pile of provisions. Don't listen to what you shouldn't hear, and don't ask what you shouldn't ask. This was the most basic courtesy. "Brother E, why did you come here so late at night?" After Akatsuki left, Yifan asked Ishuehan directly. "Two things," Ishuehan replied with a smile. "The first thing is, according to my teacher's decree, rain for the people of Liangguang." "Rain? That's great," Yifan was overjoyed and said, "I was just about to mention this to you, but I didn't expect you to mention it first, ha ha. Today, my teacher passed by Liangguang and found that Brother Yi was using the Frost Dragon's fire to condense ice rain for the disaster victims," Ishuehan said to Yifan with a smile. "Brother Ye's action made my teacher very moved, so he deliberately stopped and came to the Green Robe Society to ask me to come and help you, so here I am." Ha ha ha, when Brother E returns, you must thank the old immortal teacher for me, Yi Fan said with a laugh. If I have the chance to meet the old immortal teacher in the future, I will thank him personally. The second thing. Yi Shuihan looked at Yi Fan and stopped talking. What is the second thing? Yi Fan noticed the change in Yi Shuihan's expression and asked. I have found the person who impersonated you, Yi Shuihan said with a serious expression. You found it? Who is it? Yi Fan narrowed his eyes and asked. That person is you, and also not you, Yi Shuihan replied. Yi Shuihan's words shocked Yi Fan. He was puzzled by Yi Shuihan's words. Brother E, what do you mean? Yi Fan frowned and asked anxiously, What do you mean by it is me, and also not me? You guessed right, that person is indeed the old man who proposed to cooperate with you, but the physical body he is using now is undoubtedly your physical body, Yi Shuihan said with a frown. When Yi Shuihan said this, Yi Fan was stunned and shocked on the spot. The physical body that the old man is using is actually my own physical body? How is that possible? My physical body was created by the combined efforts of the Spirit Phoenix and the Moon Phoenix. How could others have it? Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. After thinking about it for a while, Yi Fan said firmly. Why is it impossible? Yi Shuihan asked Yi Fan. Let me ask you, during the demon-slaying conference, did you abandon your original incomplete physical body and bury it on Mount Everest? Yi Shuihan's words were like a bolt from the blue, and Yi Fan, who had just denied it, suddenly came to his senses. His pupils contracted, and his expression changed drastically. Yi Shuihan was right. After he had gone through the heavenly tribulation during the demon-slaying conference, he had abandoned his incomplete physical body and buried it on Mount Everest. That's right, that's right. Yi Fan murmured to himself. I did bury my previous physical body on Mount Everest. That old man used some unknown method to find the place where you were buried and completely repaired it. Then, he took over this physical body and walked around in your name. He was the one who killed the 3 bellkeepers. Yi Shuihan took a deep breath and said, My physical body was already incomplete, how did he repair it? Yi Fan frowned and asked Yi Shuihan. The power of the blood demon. Yi Shuihan looked at Yi Fan and said, What? Yi Fan was once again shocked by Yi Shuihan's words. The power of the blood demon? How is that possible? Yi Fan asked in shock. Don't underestimate that old man, as far as I know, he has also become a demon, Yi Shuihan said with a frown. You mean, he is also from the devil realm and has also entered the devil's pool? Yi Fan asked Yi Shuihan. If you want to become a demon, you don't have to enter the devil's pool. Yi Shuihan explained. Some people can become a demon even if they have never been to the devil realm. You can become a demon without entering the devil's pool? What kind of demon? Yi Fan asked again. Inner demon. Yi Shuihan answered. As the saying goes, one can become a demon with a single thought. The 5 devil's pools turn one's primordial spirit into a demon, and the inner demon turns one's mind into a demon. That old man is the one who created the inner demon. After Yi Fan heard this, his eyebrows furrowed. Then what about the power of the blood demon? Yi Fan asked. If one becomes an inner demon, will they have this kind of power? An inner demon doesn't have this kind of power, but don't forget, there is a large amount of heavenly demon blood in that body that you don't use. Yi Shuihan continued to explain. Extracting the heavenly demon blood from the heavenly demon blood and then cultivating it for my own use is not difficult at all for an inner demon like him. Crunch! Yi Fan crushed half of the steamed bun in his hand into flour. At this moment, his expression was ferocious, and his anger was soaring to the sky. This is not the most frightening thing, Yi Shuihan said with a serious expression. What I am most worried about is whether or not there are remnants of the Xiantian secret treasure and the proud moon heavenly scripture in your body's sea of vital energy. If there is, Yi Shuihan did not continue his sentence. Where is he now? Yi Fan turned his head to look at Yi Xuehan and asked with gritted teeth. Chapter 989. This person's cultivation level is extremely high and his whereabouts are unpredictable. I don't know where he is now. Faced with Yi Fan's questioning, Yi Xuehan slowly shook his head and said. Yi Fan turned his head and was burning with anger. Impersonating his identity, taking over his body, cultivating his spiritual energy, and then killing people and robbing them of their belongings. How could he not be angry at such a despicable and shameless person? If he had known this would happen, he would have cut this old man into pieces and gotten rid of him quickly. This person is also looking for the cauldron. If we use the cauldron to set up a trap, we should be able to lure him out. Seeing that Yi Fan was unable to calm down, Yi Xuehan spoke his thoughts. Yi Fan took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his chest. Yi Xuehan was right. If they wanted to lure this person out, they had to use the cauldron as bait. Otherwise, this person would not appear so easily. It's about time. I should leave. If Brother Yi needs any help, feel free to find me at the Clear Wind Cave on 9 Lions Mountain. Yi Xuehan said and slowly stood up. This time, it's all thanks to Brother Yi's information. Otherwise, I would still be kept in the dark by this person. Yi Fan stood up and said to Yi Xuehan, You and I are both keepers of the bell. It's only right that we help each other. You don't have to be so polite. Yi Xuehan said to Yi Fan with a smile. Brother Yi, take care. Yi Fan said to Yi Xuehan with cupped fist. The one who should take care is you. Yi Xuehan said to Yi Fan meaningfully. As he said that, he used his movement skill and disappeared in an instant. A beam of green light shot up into the sky, straight into the clouds. Brother Yi, don't forget to rain. Yi Fan shouted at the green starlight that was soaring into the sky. Whoosh! The green star was extremely fast and rushed into the clouds in an instant. Whoosh! As soon as the star entered the clouds, the sky was instantly filled with dark clouds and a strong wind blew. Black clouds rolled and surged, encircling them from all directions. In an instant, the dense clouds blocked out all the stars in the sky. Kacha! A huge bolt of lightning instantly cut through Yikong and lit up the dark clouds with a purple light. After the purple lightning, a loud clap of thunder sounded. Rumble! The sound of thunder rumbled and shook the earth seemed to be shaking. The night sky, which was full of moon and few stars, was suddenly filled with strong winds, lightning, and thunder. What a good Yi Xuehan! Looking at the sudden change in the weather, Yu Hongji, whose red dress was fluttering on the ground, was secretly amazed. To be able to trigger such a violent phenomenon by himself, this Yi Xuehan was truly impressive. Whoosh! The clouds rolling of the clouds was as if it was within arm's reach. On both sides of the street, the disaster victims who had just eaten dinner and had fallen asleep were instantly awakened by the sudden sound of thunder. Zhang Gong, wide, command the people to enter the houses on both sides to take shelter from the rain, quick! Yi Fan, who was standing on top of the food pile, said to the two ghosts. The two provinces had been dry for more than a few months. At this time, thousands of miles of land were already barren. Yi Xuehan's spell this time would definitely cause a heavy downpour. Yes. The two ghosts responded and immediately rushed into the disaster victims, directing them to enter the houses on both sides to take shelter from the rain. Yi Fan, what should we do with the food? In the strong wind, Akatsuki, who was dressed in red, leaped onto the food pile and shouted to Yi Fan. Under their feet, there were millions of kilograms of rice, flour, meat, and vegetables, as well as hundreds of thousands of kilograms of medicinal herbs. If these things were not covered up in time, they would be soaked into mush by the heavy downpour. Leave it to me, Yi Fan said as his body slowly floated into the air. Akatsuki followed closely behind Yi Fan and also rose into the air. Buzz! At the same time, Yi Fan's body glowed with a white light and a cold air rose. It was the cold air. Yi Fan wanted to use the cold air to cover up the food supplies. Akatsuki suddenly understood. Whoosh! Yi Fan raised his arms and threw both palms at the huge food pile below him. Whoosh! Two beams of cold light as thick as a bowl shot out from Yi Fan's palms, heading straight for the grain mountain that was the size of a small mountain. The moment the cold air beam shot out from Yi Fan's palms, it instantly expanded to 9 feet in thickness. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the huge cold air beam rushed to the top of the food pile. Crack! 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 Following countless crisp sounds, a huge circular ice shield instantly spread out from the top of the food pile. The ice shield spread from top to bottom at an extremely fast speed. In just a short while, the entire food pile was covered. Cold air rose and the light was colorful. Come, let's go down and take shelter from the rain. After the food pile was covered by the ice shield, Yi Fan said to Akatsuki as he flew down to a farmhouse below. Akatsuki responded and followed closely behind Yi Fan as they flew down from the sky. Strangely enough, before the disaster victims all entered the houses, not a single drop of rain fell from the sky that was filled with rolling dark clouds, flashing lightning, and rumbling thunder. When the last victim, who was old and had trouble walking, was carried into the house by Zhang Gong and Wei De, it was raining heavily from the sky. Whoosh! The rain poured down like a torrential downpour. Between the sky and the earth, pillars of water connected and turned into a world of rain. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Fan and Akatsuki appeared in the farmhouse out of thin air. Yi Shuihin's cultivation is really impressive. Yu Hongji came to the window and looked at the boundless night sky under the pouring rain. She let out a heartfelt sigh. She had seen many Esper ability experts in Dongying, those who could spit fire, those who could hide, those who could control objects, and those who could see hundreds of miles away, but this was the first time she had seen such an unfathomable Esper ability expert like Yi Shuihan. It was no exaggeration to say that Yi Shuihan's ability had reached the level of a god. Yi Fan's face was gloomy as he leaned against the wall, frowning and not saying a word. At this moment, he was not in the mood to discuss Yi Shuihan's special ability. Yi Fan gritted his teeth when he thought of another person impersonating him to search for the cauldron and kill the bell-watchers. Seeing that Yi Fan did not respond, Akatsuki turned around. When she saw Yi Fan's worried face, Akatsuki immediately frowned. What happened? She walked slowly to Yi Fan, took off her veil and asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan looked up at Akatsuki and told her what happened. Yu Hongji turned pale with fright and didn't recover for a long time. The severity of the matter was far beyond her imagination. I should have destroyed that body back then. Yi Fan, who was leaning against the wall, looked up and punched the wall in frustration. Bang! Yi Fan's fist punched a deep hole in the thick stone wall. If he had destroyed the body that he did not use back then, the 3 bell-watchers might not have died. The tragic deaths of the 3 were completely related to him. It's not your fault. Akatsuki frowned and said, if you want to blame someone, blame that old man for being too despicable. If I find out where this devil is, I'll make him beg for death. Yi Fan said through gritted teeth. He is an inner demon, and you are the demon lord. In terms of rank, you should be above him. Can't you detect his demon soul? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. Akatsuki's words made Yi Fan's eyes light up. He abruptly raised his head and froze on the spot. What did you think? Seeing that Yi Fan seemed to have realized something, Akatsuki immediately asked. Go back to the Lingyun cave tomorrow and wait for me. I have to go back to the demon realm. Yi Fan looked at Akatsuki and said. As he spoke, he waved his sleeve at the void in front of him. Buzz! A simple red door of light appeared in front of Yi Fan out of thin air. The door of light emitted a dazzling blood-red light. Above the door of light, there was a huge demon character. With the improvement of Yi Fan's demon soul, the demon gate was also changing. You want to go to the demon realm? Now? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan had just returned from the demon realm. Why was he going to the demon realm again? Now, Yi Fan said and stepped into the door of light. Yi Fan Yi Buzz. Before Akatsuki could finish speaking, the huge blood-red door of light closed and disappeared. Buzz, in front of the demon palace's door, the black-robed, silver-haired Yi Fan and red-robed Yumoji appeared out of thin air. This subordinate greets the demon monarch, greets the demon. Before Yi Fan could say the word back, he directly asked the two of them, "Don't be so polite. Let me ask you, has the demon lord returned?" "Demon lord, the demon lord has just returned. He should be resting in the heavenly devil palace right now," the inner monkey said. "Got it." As Yi Fan spoke, he grabbed Yumoji's hand and walked towards the entrance of the demon palace. Buzz, in a flash of red light, the two of them passed through the gate of the demonic realm. The scene in front of him left him dumbstruck. "Old Ma, what's wrong with the demon lord? Why is he in such a hurry to meet the demon lord?" the heart monkey asked Ima. "He didn't even wait for us to open the door." "If you ask me, who should I ask?" Ima replied. Whoosh! Yi Fan and Yumoji appeared in front of the heavenly devil palace. "Greetings, Devil Lord and Devil Empress." The golden-armored general guarding the gate knelt on one knee and bowed to the two of them. "General, please rise," Yi Fan said to the golden-armored general. "Thank you, Demon Lord and Devil Empress." The golden-armored general stood up and said, "General, is the demon lord in the palace?" Yi Fan asked. "Demon Lord, the demon lord has just returned and is resting in the palace," the golden-armored general replied. "That's good," Yi Fan said as he led Yumoji into the heavenly devil palace. After entering the heavenly devil palace, the two of them ignored the bows of the palace maids and walked up the exquisite and luxurious crystal stairs to the 9th floor of the heavenly devil palace. In the heavenly devil palace, other than the demon lord Tenmoni, no one was allowed to use their cultivation. That was the rule. The two of them jogged and finally stopped in front of a gemstone gate on the 9th floor. Yi Fan tidied his clothes and pushed the door open. At this time, Sky Moni's white and strong upper body was bare. He stood there quietly with his arms spread open. Two beautiful palace maids were holding hot towels and were wiping Tenmoni's body. "Big brother." After seeing Tenmoni, Yi Fan opened the door and greeted him. "Greetings, Demon Lord." Seeing Tenmoni's bare upper body, Yumoji immediately lowered her head and greeted him respectfully, not daring to look at him directly. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.